Call to order this Grand Haven City Council special work session. It is May 20th, 2019. Linda, would you call the roll, please?
Manetza?
Here.
Berger?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Fritz?
Here.
McCaleb?
Here. We have several items on our work session agenda this evening. The first one is a Tri-Cities Museum presentation. So we're going to ask Marcia Peterson to please come up, and they're telling us what's happening at the museum.
I'm delighted to do
We've got a couple
so.
more. We got Julie and Dave Gardner. They are ready to go.
Right, okay, you started my presentation with the introduction of all three of us being here. And you know that Dave is the vice president of the board of directors for the museum, and of course Julie Bunke is our director. And first of all, and the main reason we're here is to thank you for your longtime partnership with the museum and its support. We're very grateful for that, and I think that you all know how far the museum has come from that little depot to the Akeley and now to the Kark. And we also are here to share some exciting news that we are taking further steps in our development as a museum. About 8 months ago, we hired Canary Consulting, and we pulled in community members, board members, staff, and we all worked diligently, quite frankly. If you've ever been, and I know you have, on strategic planning, it's an arduous task, and we worked on it for 6 months. And it was a good experience, because what we found is we have a unique challenge for the Tri-Cities Museum. We know that we have this rich and interesting history. However, we also know that public awareness is not always top. In other words, we could improve on that many people are still not aware of the museum and its rich archives. So our challenge is to make accessibility in different ways, as well as to make the public aware of what the museum has to offer. So our solution is to develop a multi-dimensional set of tools and access points so that more people can engage with the museum in compelling ways. And our new mission statement is short but powerful, creating connections to local history. And our vision is that we will create a community that values its past. So you all have a packet, by the way, and I hope you have a chance to look at it, because it'll pull out some of the highlights and the things we're doing. We just had an open house on our new exhibit A to Z with all our artifacts, so please come and see that. But part of this presentation is also for Dave to give you some of our value statements. And so Dave Garland's going to talk about that for the Tri-Cities Museum.
Thank you, Marcia, and again, thank you to all you for your support for an amazing treasure that we have down the street. What we had at the depot, now at the Akeley building out in the township, it's truly a collaborative effort that what we have with the communities in the Tri-Cities is important. And without Grand Haven support, we wouldn't be there, so thank you very, very much. Marcia mentioned our mission and purpose, and you can see here in this nice glossy brochure. But it's important, we go through a vision process, a strategic planning process. The core values of our organization are very key and fundamental to what we want to work on. And it's important to have some inclusivity, okay, with thoughtful exhibitions. We want authentic representation of what our community is, past and present. That authentic delivery was very, very important to us. We also want to be adaptive. We want to be relevant. And make sure that the quality of what you're seeing and getting through the museum is important to you and to all in our community here. Stewardship is very, very important, not just financially and being fiscal sound, but good stewards of the artifacts of our communities. That's the foundation of our museum, is to really have these nice, beautiful, wonderful things that we can learn and educate and teach with. Amazing to have all of the second graders in our communities go through our museum and to begin, and that transitions into the final value, which I think is the most important one, and that's wonder. How can we encourage and envelop children's minds and any of our visitors into our museum to make sure that they walk into there with a sense of wonder? It's like, wow, there's a lot going on here in our museum, and it's very important. So again, thank you for your support, for the community's support, for a wonderful treasure that we have there in our museum. I'm going to introduce Julie to talk about some more of the very specific items that we had in our strategic plan.
Thank you, Dave. As Dave said, I'm Julie Bunke, the Executive Director of the museum. I've been there just a little over 2 years now, and I've had the pleasure of working with many community members and being able to tell the story of the Tri-Cities. And it's a phenomenal story of, 200 years of history and more that we have collected, and we are so proud to be able to display that. This year is our 60th anniversary of being a viable organization in the Tri-Cities, collecting that history and showcasing it through a variety of displays. Most recently, as I said, the Tri-Cities A to Z just opened up last Friday, and one of your council members was very instrumental in helping us get that up, Bob Manetza. Thank you. But I have the pleasure tonight of talking about our strategic priorities, which really are our guide and our roadmap for the next 5 years. Our strategic plan goes from 2019 to 2024, so it's a really creative look ahead. We're going to be strengthening the organization. We're going to continue to build upon the foundation that we currently have and that we've had for the last 60 years. We're going to be going out to the communities, doing more outreach exhibits, more displays, collecting more histories, more oral histories. We're going to expand strategic partnerships. We're going to go out and reach the middle and the high schools students, which right now are kind of an underserved community. We have all of the second graders come through for their local history. We have some third and some fourth graders, but we're really going to be going after the target audience of the 7th and 8th, and then the high schoolers. So we hope to really strengthen that partnership. We're going to be enriching the visitor experience. We would like to cultivate repeat visitors through creative displays and programming. A lot of people can come in and say, well, I've seen it, but we're constantly changing. We're every couple of months we put a new exhibit up, so come on back and check it out and see what we have to offer. We'll be promoting our brand. We don't want to be a secret anymore, as Dave said. A lot of times people have said, I've driven by, but I've never come in. So we want to make it a destination, a place that people make time, they carve time out of their busy schedules to come in, check it out, and see what we have. And we also, the big one, is we want to attain accreditation, which is really something important for a museum of our stature to have. It's accreditation through the American Alliance of Museums, and it's a recognition by our peers that we follow the best practices, that we are a viable organization in our community, that we follow all of the different priorities that we have set before ourselves, and that we're recognized, by our community as well as our peers. So thank you very much. We appreciate you having us here tonight, and thank you again for all of your support.
Thank you. Well, before you go away, I like the idea that you take the second graders through, but they're pretty small. So I think that to emphasize junior high and high school and, reacquaint these kids with that rich history that Grand Haven has, I think is a really good idea, because by the time from between 2nd and 12th grade is many years, so.
And it's a state-mandated curriculum that local history is second grade, so it's the 4th and 3rd and 2nd. So we try our best to try to get impression on the kids when they come to that.
Yeah, but your ability to take all that information in is rather small and probably short-lived, so I appreciate you reaching out to the older kids and reintroducing that rich history that we have as a community, because I think it's fascinating, so thanks for doing that.
Well, come visit.
Right, absolutely.
I just want to say thank you to them. I know the history of my family alone is that we grew up here and sitting around the table with my grandparents and everything else, and having that ability for people that have not been here as long as my family has to go somewhere and see what Grand Haven, how it evolved and how everything is. So I just think it's amazing. I mean, my history goes back a long ways. My parents kept telling us all the things, and my grandparents would keep telling me things and reminding me of what it was. And I still remember things from the 50s when I was a little boy playing down at the waterfront. I remember a lot of those areas.
It sounds like we need your oral history.
So I just applaud you. My wife and I walk in every once in a while. We go and check out the knickknacks and all the neat little things to buy there. So it's pretty good. So thank you again for all you do.
Yeah, one of the other most fun things to do is sit around and listen to people that say, do you remember what was the name of that restaurant that was on that corner, or what was the name of that store? And everybody goes back into their memory banks to see if they can Say, who can remember?
And remember that it is a good resource for those questions. As you, as board members, or anyone in the city or community has specific questions about a family, a building, a history, or that sort of thing, we are an amazing research center for that. One of the reasons we built our Community Archives and Research Center was to be able to do more of that sort of outreach for our people and our community. So use us as a resource for that research.
So Julie, Dave, or Marcia, or anyone that wants to, can you address a little bit what sort of outreach you offer at the CARC? It's your newest facility. There is a component of that where people could come and do research, or where you have research done for them. But could you address that a little bit? Because I think most people don't know hardly anything about it.
Okay, yeah, Julie, yeah, go ahead.
At the CARC building, we have all kinds of primary documents. We have maps, deeds, oral histories, we've got photos. We've got over 20,000 photos of the Tri-Cities area. And all of that is available for the public to, make an appointment, stop by, come in, leaf through it. We've got it organized all in a computer database. You can check it out according to person, place, thing. You can search by time period. You can search by location. It's really a phenomenal collection that we'd really like to see more people be able to use. So it's kind of our goal in these next 5 years is to publicize, hey, we're here, this is what we've got, come use us, come see what we've got available for you. So, so in the CARC we have public hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, every other hour by appointment. You can just give a call, go on out, talk with the staff that's out there, tell them what you're looking for. We've had realtors contact us, wanting information about a property that they're getting ready to sell. We've had homeowners, business owners, so it's really our pleasure to be able to help them find the missing pieces of the puzzle that they're looking for. So, yeah.
And where is it located?
It is located at 14100 172nd Avenue, right in the township.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
And we still have free admission at the museum, correct?
Yes, always free.
It's always free because
Yeah,
it's
it is
supported
my
by the
hopes
people.
that it always will be free. Yep,
All the more reason to go.
exactly. Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, our second item is the Marina Preliminary Engineering Report, Volume 3 of 2019. Mike Morphy, Evan Marsh, and Derek Gaddis,
Your Honor.
our
Counsel.
less than
Derek
flashy
Gaddis.
shirt guide for tonight.
Yeah, toned it down just a touch. Derek Gaddis, Public Works Director. Mike Murphy's here. Finish up the engineering report and tell us about all the recommendations and plans and maybe some phasing that we could consider. This is kind of where the fun stuff begins and the tough decisions start. So, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Derek, and thank you, Council, for giving us time to go through this third of 3 presentations. We hope that this has covered everything that you hope to get out of the study, and we hope that it leads to the improvements that we feel are needed down at the marina. So just a quick review. I'm gonna glance through the stuff that we've already covered just to hit them real quick, because I know that the first presentation was about 2 months ago. So draft report was in February. The first 2 presentations we did were the history and condition evaluation of the marina, as well as the market study and the boater survey that we did, the public survey. Tonight, we're going to touch on those real quick and get into the improvements plan and the phasing. And then the goal would be as late as April 2020 to apply for grants from the state of Michigan or other agencies potentially. So a quick summary here of the recent conditions assessment and the history. So dating back to 2014 is when the city concluded on its own, actually, after some of the phases were implemented, that longer finger piers were needed, longer slips were needed, a better mix. And that need was supported by usage data, supported by the demand at the marina. So that part's been long known. We're coming back to that same conclusion now and finding that the usage data does indeed support that. We went through and did a review of the whole facility, found some decking issues, other condition issues. There's actually been some recent damage this spring took a look at a couple months ago. We found that some of the utility hangers were damaged under the gangways. There are some ADA slip width issues, which is pretty common in marinas that are over, 5 years old, docks that are over 5 years old. There were some ground fault protection issues. National Electric Code has some requirements to prevent electric shock drowning, and some of that stuff needs to be addressed. We also found there were some preventative maintenance needs with the flotation and the anchorage of the docks, as well as some of the seawalls and sidewalks. Lastly, aesthetic and just general management needs, a couple of highlights. We saw that the utility pedestals really needed some maintenance and cleaning, and then we saw regulations and rules might need a new look in terms of modifications to docks and other things that are mounted to the docks. That's a quick overview of that presentation. And then I believe about a month ago you heard Tony McGee present the market study and some of those recommendations. Some of the key recommendations coming out of that study were probably the first and foremost to continue to update amenities and services. We know this is a prime A location to be boating. You want to have the facilities that support this as that type of location. Also to evaluate some other creative means for encouraging access to the waterfront and revenue. Evaluating the potential for a boat rental business. There's boat clubs, things like that, something to think about. Also to develop packages with other businesses, like a float and fish, for instance, where you combine a charter with maybe a tour. And then additionally, consider using portions of Harbor Island for boating uses. There may be opportunities down the road where portions of Harbor Island might be able to support the additional demand, the additional capacity that's needed to support that demand that you have here in Grand Haven. So that was an interesting recommendation.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Sure.
Is evaluate potential for licensing a boat rental business? I'm assuming that the potential renter has to prove that he knows something about boating. Knows how to drive a
Absolutely,
boat.
yeah. There's a few of these businesses operating throughout the Great Lakes, and they do require. I think they have some safety requirements, and it's usually a club that you join.
Okay.
So you get a certain number of uses out of a boat, and we could definitely pull out some more of that detail and provide it. But yeah, it's a bit different than just going down the street and renting a boat.
Right. You might find a surprise out there that you weren't aware of. Right?
Exactly.
So, okay.
The advantages are, though, that it does open it up for people that might not otherwise be able to afford a boat. So
Right.
it provides additional access to members of the public.
Or you don't want to maintain it. you know.
Exactly. You don't
Okay.
spend those hours down there cleaning it for 1 or 2 weekends a year.
They have that right now over in Ferrisburg. They have a boat rental
Okay.
over there.
Do you know which one that is by chance?
It's the one that's advertised. It goes around the whole United States, all over. You can rent.
Okay.
You buy it.
Yeah, Freedom Boat Club.
Yeah, Freedom Boat Club. That's over in Ferrisburg. Over at, is it Keenan Marine there?
Yeah.
They have that going right now.
And they've gotten real big in
Well,
their
they have
buying power now. They get new boats like every 2 years or something
And
like
what's really
that.
nice about it is that at a marina like that, it's a lot larger and they can handle a lot more boats in there compared to the size that we have. We a
Yeah.
little difficult.
Yep. So something to think about. It may not be the solution at the public marina, but it's another way to get the public on the water. It's something that fills slips, which isn't your problem right now, actually, clearly. We also did the voter and public survey to try to get input from everybody, get their 2 cents into what needs to be done down there. And just to be clear, these are just a quick summary of all the questions we asked. The full appendices include all the responses that were received, which is always kind of interesting to read. But a few of the highlights were that this is a premier destination. We all know that, but it was nice to hear that come through all the comments unsolicited. There is a desire for new floating docks and for expanding the slip mix. There are a lot of small docks currently down there. Minimal slip availability, which goes to your demand, adding more slips. There were a few comments to either improve or relocate the fish cleaning station. I'm not sure that we would support relocating the fish station, but some of the comments were, towards the smell at certain times of the year and having their boat slip near the fish cleaning station. The two are related uses though, and it just doesn't make sense to have it anywhere else. We do agree there could be improvements to it though. As far as the shower facility, there were some comments about that, needing to improve that facility. And then there was a comment about mitigating wave energy at the lower part of the marina. I think that was more towards the fixed piers, which are left a little bit exposed given the right wind conditions. So that's your brief overview of what we've spent so long talking about already. But what we did then is we took all that input, we tried to create some initial concepts, and then from those concepts chose what we think is a preferred concept, and then looked at phasing. So the overall approach, you see the screen here, we've got a sheet pile wall, which is a vertical wall, and then we've got a riprap slope in front of that wall. And that takes up a lot of space, especially at low water, which is not our issue today, obviously. Takes up a lot of space, it pushes those docks out into the channel, and it limits how long the docks can be. So the overall strategy, the wall's been driven. We put in a new wall with the last phase of construction to dredge that material out, remove it, and then move the docks closer to the seawall. And that gets us about 18 feet on average of additional length that would be available, not only to the slips, but also to the fairway and the navigational channel adjacent.
I think we were going to have that done. We ran out of money the last time, if I remember correctly.
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
that's why we put the steel pilings in there.
Yeah, so we started down that path with the last phase of construction. There were some issues, I think, with marine construction that year. The sheet
Yes.
piling costs went sky high. And then we found that there was regulated material in that riprap, which means you can't just take it anywhere. You got to control how it gets handled, how it gets dewatered, and where it goes.
Yep.
Which, of course, makes the cost a lot higher.
Yeah, I
So,
remember that.
yeah, that's what I understand occurred, although I wasn't with Avmarsh at that time.
Be nice to see that riprap gone, moving closer.
Yep.
Because when the water does get low, actually, your boats are getting further out in there. And we only have so much distance we're allowed in that channel for boats as it is.
Right.
So we need to move them closer. That's a good idea. Thank you.
And then you also run into a lot of old wood and wooden construction buried there that we try to drive pile through.
Yeah, I was going to mention, I wish we'd known where the 22,000 photos were back when that was done. We might have seen something from years past, but it's almost all shorelines in highly populated areas. They have some kind of industrial use in the past, and
Oh, yes. It was a bustling port here.
yeah,
It was, as I said earlier, if you're here for it, was that I had a lot of history down there, and that's where a lot of the boats would come in and dock in there, so I had a lot of wooden pilings, and it was a very busy port. We used to have boats by 50 to 100 more sitting out in the lake waiting to come in to unload or load and come back and go again. It was one of the busiest harbors at one time, Grand Haven was.
and that was commercial traffic?
Yes, it
Commercial
was.
boats?
And that's why you see along that whole waterfront there, that was where you found all those wooden pilings and everything. I could have told them about that. I fished there.
Yeah, it's interesting the way these all have evolved so much from a commercial use, almost 100% to close to 100% recreational use at this point.
Crazy. Okay.
So initial concept one, this is actually a plan that was developed in 2012 as the next phase of improvements. And so this moved the head pier close to the wall, but the difference between this and where we think we want to go with it is that the gangways, the ramps that go from a fixed height down to that floating platform that goes up and down with water, they were perpendicular to shore. So that up top left of the screen, you can see as you went down that gangway, you do a U-turn to come back to the dock, which isn't that big of a deal, but it does add length to some of the cabling and some of the power and water lines. In particular for electric, that can add some significant costs. And then as that current moves the dock upriver and downriver, that can put some strain on the gangway connection. There's ways to get around it. It is feasible. But the next concept, we feel, solves some of those issues. So concept two would do almost the same thing with the docks, moving them close to the shoreline, but the gangways would go parallel to shore. And you accomplish this by building a fixed platform out from the wall, and then the gangways go to each side. I think I've got a spotter on here, but I'm scared to push it. The top left shows where that is. There's a perfect square that's a platform that would be fixed on piling, and then the gangways go to either side of that to land down on the dock. Another nice thing about that, it gives you an ability, if the city wanted to control access to the floating dock for seasonal slips, where there's really not a reason for people who aren't getting onto a boat to get down onto the dock. So that opportunity is there. It would be obviously the city's decision to look into that further. Initial concept 3 is a modification of concept 2. So we did some tweaking around where the gangways land, how the docks are broken up into pieces. We picked some of those oddball areas where there's a transition, and top of the screen under the word refined, there's an area that we called out the dinghy dock area. So that's a potential area where dinghies can tie up to come and go shopping or go out to eat that might be docking their boat elsewhere. That was one of the things that came out of the survey as well. And then the very upstream side, the right side of the drawing, would be a potential area for personal watercraft if that was continued through the marina. Right now there's a couple docks for personal watercraft, jet skis. This would be the spot for that, we think. One thing to mention here, this is what we're calling the preferred plan. We do have a slip mix that we developed with that, but the possibilities are endless with how we do that slip mix. So when we get into final design, eventually, we can optimize that to the conditions that day. So here's a quick comparison of the three. The existing plan has about 1,200 linear feet of dockage, and we do that by counting up the slips and length, and it gives us a good overall indication of the capacity of the marina. Concept 1 added 6 ADA slips and got up to almost 1,500 linear feet, so it increased the linear footage by 25%. The cost was just about $2.7 million estimated. The second concept, parallel gangways, added a little bit more dockage, got 34% of the existing plan at about $2.66 million. And then the last, what we think is the best concept, gets us a little bit more linear footage, 35% increase from existing at about $2.8 million. That's a side-by-side comparison. They're all pretty similar in cost, but they all do add about a third of your slips. This is just a slide showing the slip mix. So we go from right now having 40 30-foot slips and no other sizes really, to a pretty good mix of having a bunch of 35s, a bunch of 40s, and 45s. And the reason we can do that is because now we have that space between the navigation channel and the wall. And the ADA slips are something that we can get with any of the three concepts, just to be clear. It's just showing how they are right now. Examples of that, these are a couple projects that I've been involved with over the years. Top left is in Michigan City, built a new platform and a short parallel gangway. Bottom left is in St. Joe, Michigan. It's a private marina. The bottom right is also in Michigan City, and the top right is in Rochester, New York. So the phasing alternates, we looked at this, we said, here's the preferred plan. Well, how do we build this? We're not going to necessarily go and spend $3 million to build this all in one phase, which would be the most efficient way to do it, but we understand there are limitations. Phasing alternate 1 would basically move west to east. So area A on the west part would have the dredging done, any wall reinforcements, and then have the old docks taken out and the new docks brought in. And then we would do that from west to east. We do A, B, and then C. Excuse me. We did add some escalation costs to that overall estimate, because when you phase it like that, you're going to pay mobilization a couple times, and there are other costs that are going to occur. But that first phase looks like about a $1.25 million project. What we're trying to do here is provide options for that initial phase that might be a budget that the city could undertake realistically. Phasing alternate 2, this would envision basically Phase A, taking on any reinforcement to that wall, because we know in some spots before we dredge, we're going to probably need to reinforce it because of some obstructions that we ran into. And then doing all the dredging, all of that as your first phase. The reason I don't like this so much is you've got to disconnect these docks again, you got to move them off the wall again, do all that work, and then put them back. Each time you do that, as we found out, it takes a little life out of those docks, and it's a pretty big inconvenience and a cost that's really unnecessary. But it does result in about a $500,000 phase, and so if we're very limited on our initial phase here, that one might be an option. The other thing here is when this phase is done, it's another phase where the boaters don't feel that benefit to the facility. They're going to use the same old docks and the same old everything. They're really not going to see a huge benefit out of that. Phasing alternate 3 would envision constructing the middle portion of the project, what's labeled as A in orange there, and then either B or C after that. But what this does is creates an all-in phase that's a little bit more affordable maybe at $717,000 that starts to get some of those end user benefits, new docks, and some longer slips. So this one might make sense if we're really limited on budget, but we want to show something to the end user. And phasing plan 4 really starts on the east side and moves west. So it starts at A and goes to, I'm sorry, this goes A, B, and then C. So the east side begins first, then the west side, then the center. Some of those are interchangeable. What we've tried to do is evaluate how that platform will get built, what phase it would be in, all those things. The other consideration with these 3 is your seasonal docks. So area shown here is B in green. That's your seasonal docks, and they're full nearly all summer, all heavily utilized, and so that might be worth considering and weighting as far as priority. We want to provide those options, get you thinking about budgeting, and I know that process is forthcoming for next year, so it's something to be thinking about what's a realistic budget there, and there's a range of options. As far as funding opportunities, there are a few. One is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Boating Infrastructure Grant. This is an interesting one for Grand Haven in particular because it funds only half the cost of only transient facilities. So a facility that's 90% seasonal, that's really not a great option. It's not going to result in a lot of funding. But with 2/3 of this marina being transient only, that would be eligible for that type of a grant. So that's a good one. It's a nationally competitive selection process. You apply through the state of Michigan, and then it goes to the federal agency for review. And again, it's a competitive process, so it takes a pretty significant effort to put together that type of an application. State of Michigan Waterways Grant Program, the city is certainly familiar with this one. A lot of the improvements over the years have been funded through this program. That said, that program has a very limited amount of funds. This year, the grant cycle that occurred in April, I think the state only had about 1.5 million, and that's for all the grant applications they received throughout the state, which is just a drop in the bucket. If you can imagine, we're talking 3 million to replace the marina essentially, with 82 harbors throughout the state, which includes state harbors and grant and aid facilities. That 1.5 million really doesn't do much. But the good news is the state is undertaking a survey and an evaluation of all of those facilities, including boating access sites. So there's like 300 facilities to evaluate what is their capital cost in the next 5 to 10 years and over the long term. So hopefully that study results in some, it's going to be bad news for the state, but hopefully it results in some funding to support this bit of important infrastructure that we have in Michigan that we're lucky to have. So that application is every year, April 1st. I think April 2020, we're in a good position now that hopefully the city is armed with some information to be able to make some decisions, and that we can put together something by April 1st at minimum. And then other grants that fund pieces of the puzzle. Clean Vessel Act Pump Out Grant is a pretty straightforward grant that would fund improvements to a pump out facility, sanitary pump out facility. And then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Sport Fish Restoration Grant funds things like fish cleaning stations and public access to the water. So there may be opportunities there as well. But our goal is to put this in front of you, arm you with the information, and hopefully over the next year or so, we can figure out how best to accomplish this.
All right, well, thanks much. Anybody have questions that haven't already been asked?
I got one. Mike, in the phasing alternates, you referred to A or B in this one as the seasonal. Does that mean C and, well,
Here we
the
go.
letters are moving, I
There we
mean, A,
go.
B, C. So A as being the seasonal, I believe. Does that mean B and C are considered transient? Or are we all seasonal as far as that first grant opportunity goes?
So A is considered seasonal. That is that's where all the charter boats are typically docked. B and C, I believe, are both transient.
Yes,
And so
they are.
that boating infrastructure grant could fund B and C.
Yep.
So now that's not to say you couldn't build the whole project as one. It just means that boating infrastructure grant's only going to fund half of B and C. It's not going to fund any of A.
Okay, good. That's the first question. The second question I had is, with these different options, is there, and changing some of the boat slip sizes and so forth, is there an increased increased amount of revenue that we'll be generating, and can you tell us what that might be with those first series of options that we had? So it's option A can get us an extra 100,000 a year, option B is, and so forth.
Yeah, so we could do a quick analysis
that.
to add to this.
Yeah.
But basically, if you're increasing your linear footage of dockage and you're, for the most part, 95 to 100% full during the summer months, or Memorial Day to Labor Day, it would be reasonable to expect that your revenue is going to increase 30 to 35% in that range. So from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense, just additional revenue to fund maintenance of this facility.
Sure, and it'd be nice to know what that actual number projection is, because if it's
Yep.
$260,000, well, we're getting 10% back every year on what we're investing, and that's pretty good, or just some number that we can use.
Okay.
Dynamite for making that decision when it comes.
We'll do a quick analysis and send that along.
As you
Yep.
said, it's probably pretty easy. But,
Yeah.
Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And I'd like to echo what Josh asked. I think that financial analysis is pretty important if we're going to make this kind of investment in the marina. Here we are looking at trying to fix roads and asking for additional millage and all that, pay-as-you-go system that we're approaching here. This has to have some economic justification behind it. I mean, in a good year, the marina doesn't lose money. Here we are trying to generate a little more money to pay for another almost $3 million of improvements.
Sure.
Another question I have, though, and just in looking at these concepts that you've got up there now, it looks like you get the most bang for your buck with option 2, but you say option 3 is the preferred one. Can you explain why it's preferred?
Yeah, option 3, we got into some, I'll go over to that screen here. So it really got into looking in more detail at the interface. So you can see bottom left of this screen, the way that dock comes out at a 90 degree and then goes over at 90 degree. We got into optimizing that a little bit to try to increase some of the slip lengths. And we did squeeze a little bit more,
Looks like you got 15 more feet of slip length for another couple $100,000.
Right.
So that's
Yep.
pretty expensive per foot for the extra. That's
Yep.
why, as I look at it in terms of bang for the buck, it doesn't look like you made it with option 3.
I think the other change was concept 2, now that I'm thinking back, the dock where all the charter boats are typically located. I think we had that at a 10-foot dock in concept 2, and we widened it, or maybe it was 8 feet, we widened it to 10 feet, because of all the appurtenances that are needed for those users, with dock boxes and chairs and things to support that use. So it would be reasonable to think that that would have to be applied to concept 2 as well.
But
I can outline
that's not reflected in your numbers.
Okay.
I mean, and that's my question, is
No.
that reflected in your numbers?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so we still have dollar for slip length increase comparison here.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe it's simplistic of me, but that's just the way I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Good question.
And then the other thing, I didn't have a chance to mention it, your comment about revenue. I think it's fantastic that the City of Grand Haven is able to be revenue positive with the marina during good years. And that's actually pretty unusual. The bigger thing is the impact to the city in terms of dollars spent by boaters that are visiting the city. The market study portion of this spent some time talking about that, but it's really important to think about it. It's hard to think about it that way when you're looking at a $3 million improvement. But that's kind of almost the cost of doing business and keeping those boaters coming back, using these facilities and spending money in the
Well,
city.
yeah, we use the same reasoning in fixing our roads too, that
Yep.
if the roads are good, people are more likely to come. It's just that we can't tax our roads and we can't tax our marina, and we get our money from property taxes.
In all these concepts, you've added more personal watercraft landings for them to come into docking there, which is more of the way to go nowadays, because there's a lot more. If you sit by the river and watch them go down the channel, there's a lot more of those small little jet skis and stuff on that order for them to go up and down. So I think by increasing that, then we'll actually have some place for them to stop.
Mhm.
We could probably fill them up a lot more than what we think we could.
Yeah, and the other thing with those is those are a gateway into boating, and that's the folks are buying their first boat, maybe they're buying a personal watercraft, and
Yep.
maybe the next thing is a 25-foot boat, and then they're leasing a slip. So that's another part of it too, we're thinking about.
Then on this, when you go into the phasing on there, for grants and that, can we apply for each phase? We apply for a grant for each one at that time? That would actually bring it, we could probably come up with more money than for each phase on the grant.
Yep, and that's kind of, with that much of a limit on the funds that are coming from the State of Michigan Waterways grant, you know, it makes sense to do a,
Yes.
bite-sized portion first and ask for half of that. And then you go on to the next phase and the next phase.
Sorry, one little outside the box question for you. How much width, I'm looking at the image that you have up, behind me. How wide does the channel need to be in order for there to be some sort of docking on the opposite side? I'm looking over at Linear Park over there. I'm not saying it's anything we're thinking about right now actively at all, but it's just a curiosity.
So you're probably, well, typically what you do with a fairway width is 1.5 times the largest slip served. So if you have a 60-foot slip right there, you need 90 feet of fairway to
Quite a
get
bit.
that boat out and move it up the channel.
Gotcha.
In terms of this, it's a little different than a fairway though. So you've got another marina upstream, and it's not really a fairway inside of a marina. But there would be, I would think there'd be ample room to go broadside along a wall on the other side there.
Parallel parking
Yeah, exactly.
for car people. Gotcha.
When the water was low, we had a difficult time because of that, because the boats were sitting out so far out there. When the water's low, right now it's high, we can
I
probably
know.
get away with it,
Right now, yeah.
but it's not always gonna be high, so
gets
I hate to,
smaller.
I hate to put a lot of money into something that
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't be able to use for a long time.
You can just about float over Harbor Island right now, but
Yes, you can. It's been years since I seen the pond, Old Camp Pond full of water, so, but yeah, you gotta be careful on that too, on the other side.
Yep. Yeah, and the other thing to mention with water levels, those gangway lengths have to be governed by low water conditions. Well, when you're at today's water level, they're flat. You're just walking across to the dock. It's, there's no loss in elevation. So it seems kind of silly, but then when you go back to low water levels like 2013, starts to make sense.
So is this, because the water levels are so high right now, and it's a cyclical thing, as looking at, potential going out for grants and actually taking a serious look at when you're going to implement something like this, it might not be a bad idea to wait until the water cycles back down again, because right now, it's at high levels. Maybe you don't want to disturb there's no big need to undisturb that, the effluent next to the wall.
Yeah, it definitely makes construction a little bit more complicated when you're in deeper water. pulling that material up that you'd otherwise be able to see and potentially even be dry.
Right.
But we have no way to know when we're gonna return to that level again. I was just looking at the chart today for the last 100 years, and, you know, there were some periods in the 40s and 50s, I think it was, where there was, you know, 10 years where we were above average water levels. So
Right.
it could very well happen again where we're here for, you know, 5 to 10 years.
No, it'll,
My head, though, I don't,
we're enjoying it now, but it will go back down.
yeah.
It always does. So, and the time to apply for these grants is
April 1st.
April 1st.
Mhm.
April Fools.
Well, no, and I'm thinking if, you know, the state of Michigan is serious about having waterways grant, they need a little bit more money to set aside for these opportunities than what we're seeing right now.
I agree, yeah.
Gives us time to lobby Lansing.
Yeah,
Every little bit helps.
absolutely, absolutely, but it is a big investment.
Maybe there's some dredging funds that could be diverted to this.
We take the money from
Yeah, yeah.
dredging down there, we use the dredging over
There's
here
like
instead.
$3 million sitting out there, maybe we can get it put into this.
We can get 3.2 million more, add to it.
Yeah. Better use of the money.
There you go, that's a good idea for, pass it on.
Any other comments?
Oh, I would say thank you for the presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you all, appreciate your questions.
all right.
Talk to you soon.
Pat, is there anything that you need from us at this point, or?
Well, at this point, you've, you know, done a pretty good job, and so did Mike, of laying things out, and there's not a great opportunity to do all this work. You know, if 1.5 million spread out statewide, and I don't know what the prospect is with the national money and what the likelihood is of achieving that in early years, or if you can leverage that with the state money. So we need to do some more homework and do what you asked for, which is the fiscal analysis. Where are we at in terms of the previous investments and how much of that has been paid back? And the real money driver is the boat launch. We all get that. The marina doesn't really break even. It breaks even plus a little with the boat launch money coming in. So we have to stack that up, but you are still significantly in debt to the public improvement fund from the last 2 projects that were done. So we're still not above.
Water?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
We are underwater.
Water's getting higher.
But that's something that you can, you know, write off and just say, well, let's continue with something else and make another subsidy from the general fund or the public improvement fund if you decide it's worth it, or as conditions demand it. You know, when we get to the point where it's falling apart, we need to do something. So we'll keep our eye on it and bring something back and possibly have something ready next April to apply for a grant.
All righty, thanks. Okay, last item, the gum tree removal plan. If anybody familiar with gum trees?
Well,
Sounded good at a time.
Couple council sessions ago, I heard loud and clear that we need to remove some gum trees downtown. And so there are 4 trees that we'll be removing here very shortly. However, when we looked at it, we're like, well, actually, there's a lot more trees down there. And we wanted to make sure that I got council's directive right before we started moving forward. And then there was some costs associated with it too. So, sorry, there's 3 trees right in front of the VFW that we'll remove very shortly. But there's 4 on the other side of First Street. There's 1 down by Washington. There's a couple on Columbus, which Jackson Murphy Contractors did a great job at saving, and when they did the infrastructure. And then there's some in the parking lots too. So, you know, with that, there was 26 trees, I think in all. 17 removals, and then we have some empty spaces where some trees had been planted over the years and they haven't been replaced on First Street. 3 towards Columbus and 3 towards Washington. So I've actually eyed that when I first got it here. I'm like, hey, we gotta get some trees back in there. We've let the stumps rot a little bit longer, and we also noticed some sidewalk improvements need to be done there. Some lifting and heaving, and there's brickwork, and then it's like, well, where does this stop? You know, if we're gonna put some trees in, we're gonna take some out. And Dan selected a couple very nice trees to go in these locations. But I just wanted to make sure that I got the council's directive to, you know, where, was it just 3 trees you wanted, or was it, do we want to remove them all? Because they all drop all that stuff all the time, and we're constantly picking them up. And we've done it for years, and we'll keep doing it. But if the council wants to do them all, now's the time as a big lump sum and as a project.
Well, I think that, you know, the ones at the VFW are, I can understand they're problematic.
That's what I
But
brought up.
I don't know if I want to take out 17 trees if they're not creating a problem, or 14 more if they're not an issue. But I think it is an issue at the VFW because of the danger of somebody, you know, falling, tripping, hurting themselves because of the, you know, spiky little balls that fall out of the trees. But I don't, for myself, to remove all the trees, I don't know if that's necessary or not, so.
Well, I was one that brought it up quite a few years ago, and then just this last time also, it was actually for the VFW hall, down in that area, down that street there on First Street, because VFWs, they're not young people, and it's very difficult for them, and they also have abilities that they need to walk through they have disabilities, should I say, and it's very dangerous for them, and they're out there sweeping and cleaning them things up, and I thought maybe we get a better tree for them to put in there that doesn't drop something that's round that you step on and fall. It's just an accident ready to happen. I don't know so much about the ones in the parking lot or over by the pump house. I haven't heard anybody say anything about those yet, but the biggest concern was the ones down First Street there. That's what I heard. Isn't that you? We made the same mention.
Yeah, we attended Covenant Life Church for a while, and the trek from Covenant Life Church down First Street over to get a cup of coffee was a little treacherous, or a lot of fun because our boys would pick them up and throw them at each other, which had its certain appeal to it as well, or not. But yeah, the three that are in front of the VFW were the primary ones that I was concerned about as well. And I think in part because the sidewalk is pretty narrow there, and there's no real way to go around them without going into the road. Whereas a few of the other locations there, you can either walk around them or you guys get on them faster. I don't know, but I haven't noticed them being an issue in any of the other spots.
Okay. And so we, you know, the other plan that I had since I've been here, and I think we squeezed it in the budget this year, is to plant those 6 trees and do some sidewalk repairs down there. But then we get into some brickwork that's along First Street there, right along the Harborfront Place, if you will. So planning on trying to get that done as well, just so you know. We'll take those 3 trees out in front of the VFW, we get those replanted. We'll do some concrete work around there. We'll jump on the other side of First Street, get 6 more planted in there, and you'll see some additional work there. But we'll leave the rest of them. I just wanted to make sure that I heard you and understood exactly what you wanted.
So do all 17 of these trees drop their little spiky balls on pavement, or do some of them drop it on grass or on plantings?
Pretty much them all drop on pavement.
So you have the same hazard for all 17 of them.
Yep.
It's just that it's more noticeable in some places than others.
I think so. I think some of the shop owners might get to some of that before us, like on First Street. I've seen Outside Ales employees out there sweeping up, and then you run over there and they grab some, and so yeah.
So if we're treating this as a public nuisance or a hazard to pedestrians, we should probably look at all 17 then.
Well, that's why I brought it here tonight, thinking like
Understood.
if that was the thought process, then
Well,
we
I asked that question.
Well, and I'd just observe that it's a problem in the one location where we have the 3 trees. It's not a problem that has been identified in the other locations. We have these trees all over town, and people rake them up, and we don't get complaints. Here we do, because of a specific population that has asked that we remove these trees. So I'm thinking we remove the 3, like Derek said. The other ones have not been identified as a problem thus far. And the day that Derek and I went out there and looked at them, there were little round balls all over the corner by First and Columbus there, but all these other locations, there were none, or maybe 1 or 2.
Pat, I think the technical name is spiky balls.
Yeah,
Spiky balls, sorry.
Spiky balls, yeah. That's what we're talking about here.
The spiky balls as opposed to the other varieties, but
Yeah, the
so
non-
you know, I don't know
non-spiky.
that we need to, I agree with the approach. Let's get these ones taken care of and see if the nuisance has been taken care of. You know, some people, you know, some trees drop stringy long beans and other trees drop other things, and sometimes we get complaints and sometimes we don't. We used to have those trees downtown with the little tiny leaves. I don't remember what those were called, but they were,
Nuisance trees.
well,
Yeah,
some
nuisance trees.
complained about them, others didn't, others
But
thought
not,
they were
not many
beautiful.
people fell on them or presented a hazard where they were going to be injured. And so, I mean, I guess my point is that if you have that hazard here, and you have 17 of these guys, whether you take them all out now or later, if you leave them, you're leaving a recognized hazard in place.
And I don't know that, you know, to say it's a recognized hazard, they've been there for 30 years dropping spiky balls on the ground.
Yeah.
And I've yet to have a confirmed report of somebody literally tripping, but it has been identified as a nuisance.
Including these three.
Right, right, you know, that there's, you know, that they could be a tripping hazard, so we wanna take those three out. If you'd like, we can take out all 17. I don't know if that would be an overreaction or not, you know, it's just again, we've got hundreds of these all over
We
town.
can work at it.
I vote for 3.
Start with 3.
I think we can work at it, and as it goes, and we can fit it in our budget a lot easier, too.
Yeah, I haven't had any complaints on the other ones, that's why, but I wanted to make sure that, again, if I did 3 and then you're expecting all 17, I wanted to make sure we got that right, so.
How many of those are lifting the concrete up? Do you know?
Really, those 4 that are on the west side of, or north side of First Street.
That's all? There's
Yeah.
not another?
We had new sidewalk along Columbus, so that's been taken care of. The other 4 in the parking lot of Harborfront Place, they're in grass areas.
Yep.
So, they're pretty small, but, so yeah, we don't see any real damage there. So there was one on the corner in front of the VFW, I think there was a little bit of lift.
Starting to, yes,
Yep,
it is.
starting, not too
I
bad.
think, you know, once they start raising the sidewalk up or whatever, before they make a hazard, I think we ought to take them out.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Except that I know we're replanting 22 river birch and Callery pear, and I think we've got an awful lot of those pear trees around town. So I vote for the river birch. Because everybody, the city of Grand Haven, Village of Spring Lake, if there's ever a pest that attacks the Callery pears, we're gonna be totally without trees.
Yeah.
So,
I drove Spring Lake just this weekend, all white. They're all
white.
blue. Beautiful,
They're
beautiful, but,
everywhere.
Look down my neighborhood.
yeah, no, that's
all
cool.
white.
We'll mix them in, Dan will pick them out, he'll place them. So those are just 2 of the species that he thought would look good down there.
No maples, right?
No maples,
Okay.
no, wait a minute, but
No oak.
only syrup.
Maples may be coming back.
Okay,
I think we handled it.
We got it,
good job.
3 trees.
We got 3 more minutes, we can beat on this some more if you like.
That's all right,
If there were really real gum trees, we could probably use it.
yeah.
Brew something with those.
We could spike the.
Spiky balls.
Yeah. Get kids to throw them.
All right, well, we got that.
All right. Well, we're going to take a 3-minute break
Okay.
before we open up our council session.
Hey, Derek.
It is May 20th, 2019. Linda, would you call the roll, please?
Manetza?
Here.
Bruger?
Here.
Scott?
Here?
Fritz?
Here.
McCaleb?
Here. Our invocation this evening will be given by Councilmember Dennis Scott. Please remain standing after the prayer for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we pray? God, we ask for wisdom as we meet here tonight. We pray that your will be done in Grand Haven as it is in heaven. We know you are the great and awesome God that made heaven and earth. Before time began, you were the great I am. You have granted us the responsibility to govern this great city. For much is given, much is required. So someday we'll answer to you for how we do here. So we seek your guidance tonight and every night that we meet here to make Grand Haven the city you intended it to be. A place of a peaceful place, a pleasant place to work and raise a family, a place where those who come and visit will find Grand Haven a great place to rest and vacation, a city that is like any other, and it's all because of you. So do your work in our hearts and our minds and teach us to love you as much as you love us. And may we show respect for one another as we make our decisions that affect Grand Haven tonight. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, we have one new appointment and several reappointments to consider this evening. So Linda, do you want to read those for us?
This is to appoint Dale Hagenbush to the Airport Board with a term ending June 30th, 2021, and reappoint Stancy McClellan to the Musical Fountain Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2023, Tanya Christensen to the Parks and Recreation Board with a term ending June 30th, 2024, and Amy Kozanecki and Michelle Julian to the Zoning Board of Appeals with terms ending June 30th, 2022.
Okay, can I have a motion for these, this appointment
So
and the
moved.
reappointment?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on any of these good folks?
Just want to tell them thank you for volunteering.
Absolutely. So we are ready to vote.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. So Dale, if you would like to join Linda up at the podium.
I'll just read this. Just raise your right hand. That's all you have to do. I, Dale Hagenbush, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Airport Board in and for the City of Grand Haven, County of Ottawa, and State of Michigan according to the best of my ability.
I do.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, new appointments that we swear in, reappointments are just voted on. They don't have to come back and they've already been sworn in, so we just carry on. All right, we're to the approval of consent and regular agendas. Are there any changes, Pat?
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to ask that the item under new business 13B be pulled from the agenda tonight. We've got some more work to do on that to get you better apples and apples comparisons there, so I'd like to hold that off till your next meeting.
Okay.
And then on item C, I'll address that when we get to that item.
Okay,
That's the only change I believe I have tonight, Your Honor.
all right. Anybody up here have a change? No? Okay, I need a motion to accept the agenda with that one deletion. Item B.
So moved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. We need to vote.
Bruger,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza,
Yes.
McCaleb.
Yes. General business, call the audience. This is one of two opportunities for anyone to address council on anything that they have on their mind. Just let us know who you are and where you live.
Good evening. I'm Joyce Verplank Hatton, and I live in Spring Lake. And I lived for almost 25 years in the city of Grand Haven, and have been essentially a lifelong resident. I realized that I'm happy to have this opportunity to speak to you at the beginning of your council meeting. When I was president of the village of Spring Lake in 2017, I could not convince the council members that the public would enjoy the opportunity to speak to them at the beginning as well as the end of the council meeting. I am assuming that I will have only 3 minutes to tell you a little bit about my life with Mayor Jerry McCaleb's mother in the 1950s and 60s. So I plan to read my minutes, and we'll see how fast I can be. In December of 1952, I married Julian Hatton Jr. His father, Julian Hatton, president of Eagle Ottawa Leather Company, one of Grand Haven's largest employers with almost 1,000 workers, had died tragically that summer in a taxi truck accident. Julian Hatton Jr., at age 25, became the new president at Eagle Ottawa. At that same time, Julian was building a new ultra-modern designed home on top of a sand dune at the southwest corner of the city. It had 11 levels that required an athletic existence of its inhabitants. I hired Dean, I think it's Garrett Dina,
Yep, Carolina. Yep.
Corving, in 1953 to help me take care of this new folly, which my college friends nicknamed the house. Dean had just immigrated in 1952 from the Netherlands with her husband and 4 of her 5 children. The youngest, Jerry, was only 6 years of age. I am sure Dean had no idea she would be caring for my 5 kids, too, within the next decade. Dean's reliability, her smarts, and her energy made it possible for me to go back to college, to develop the first nursery school in Western Michigan in 1957, and to accept an appointment to the Michigan Republican State Central Committee. That appointment led to a decade of active political work, which you're doing tonight. In 1964, from 64 to 68, I was chairman of the Ottawa County Republican Party and an active participant in Governor Romney's 68 presidential campaign. Dean Corving was there for all those 15 years, retiring in 1968 when her youngest, Jerry, was 22 years old. But Jerry McCaleb didn't show her interest in the Grand Haven political community until much later. Nevertheless, her interest in the welfare of the Grand Haven community has been unwavering for almost 2 decades. Bring my prop. I gave Jerry and her siblings this month copies of my lengthy memoir, Breaking Glass, Broken Barriers, with subtitle, Voyage of an Entrepreneurial Spirit. It records the patriarchal history of my energetic and entrepreneurial and political Verplanck and Hatton families. Beginning in 1848, when my great-grandfather, Juice Verplanck, age 4, was carried ashore on the beach of Grand Haven. Juice, would you like the third page?
I think we're close to 3. Are we 3 minutes? Probably pretty close.
Okay. Then I'll skip to the end. Grandpa William Hatton arrived in Grand Haven in 1910 and contributed enthusiastically to the development of the Grand Haven Hospital, where I was born, and the first independent electrical utility, etc. But my memoir could not record what influence Dean Corbing had on our youngest, energetic daughter, Jerry. That record will be Jerry's to make. But I am sure Dean would be very proud of Jerry's extensive commitment, almost 2 decades, to serving Grand Haven and all of the Western Michigan community. And I have a book here also for your general manager and also for your attorney. I think they might find the last chapter interesting. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for saying such nice things about my mother. She was quite the lady. A smart lady. Lots, my mom had a enthusiasm for 2 or 3 people. She was a lot of fun. But thank you much. Wow. Anyone else? If not, we will go to the consent agenda.
This is to approve the special council budget work session minutes of April 15th, 2019, and special work session and regular council meeting minutes of May 6th, 2019. Approve the bills memo in the amount of $457,364.02. Approve membership renewal to the Michigan Municipal League for the period of July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 in the amount of $5,035 for MML dues and $504 for the Legal Defense Fund for a total of $5,539. Enter into an agreement with HealthBridge, an employee benefit company that will provide payment options to our employees and a stable payment option for our local community hospital, North Ottawa Community Hospital, pending attorney review, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. Accept the addendum to extend the current hydrant painting contract with DNS Industrial Painting Services and to reflect the change in completion date of June 20th, 2020, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. Accept the addendum to extend the current citywide concrete contract with Brown Concrete and to reflect the change in completion date of June 30th, 2020, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. Approve the 2019 Feast of the Strawberry Moon event to be held on Harbor Island on June 8th from 8 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. and June 9th from 8 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. and to allow camping. Approve the Kiwanis Circus event to be held on Saturday, September 4th, 2019, with shows at 5:30 p.m. and 8 o'clock p.m. on Harbor Island, and waive fees in the amount of $350. Approve the new Meyer State Games of Michigan BMX freestyle event to be held at the Grand Haven Skate Park on Saturday, June 22nd, from 11 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., and allow the applicant to charge a $10 entry fee for the event. Approve the 2019 Rotary Divine Wine event to be held on June 27th at the Chinook Pier parking lot. Permit the consumption of alcohol and allow amplified sound until 10 o'clock p.m. Approve the St. Patrick St. Anthony Parish Festival to be held on Friday, August 9th from 8 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. and Saturday, August 10th from 8 o'clock a.m. to 11 o'clock p.m. and allow amplified sound. And approve a gift and acceptance agreement with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources to install marker signs and signal flags from the Grand Haven South Pier to the south end of City Beach to provide for the safety and welfare of the public, funded by the Grand Haven Rotary at no cost to the city, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
All right, is there a motion?
I thought we were going to take D off. Is that what you said, Pat?
That D under new business.
Under new business? Okay.
B under new business came out.
All right.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay. Any
Don't matter.
Comments or questions on any of the items, the many items on the consent agenda?
On D, right now, if you have, you go to the hospital or something, or you get a medical bill, it happened to my wife one time where we ended up having to pay like $3,000 for a procedure that was not necessary. And we just negotiated a $50 a month payment on it because I was so ticked off at the doctor and the hospital and them for going forward with it. If we go with this, is there a way I can negotiate that as an employee? Can they negotiate it to pay the minimum of what they can pay, or do they have to pay the full amount at a certain time? Are they going to be penalized then? Does that take that right away from them?
It doesn't change anything as far as the patient, institution relationship or responsibility for payment. If there's a beef with a bill or this HealthBridge being a part of it wouldn't change that dynamic. They're buying the debt, but if there's a disputed bill, there's still a disputed bill, and I don't believe the insertion of this third party would impact that relationship or that right or ability to.
Well, if HealthBridge is going to take it over, they're going to charge them a fee, then it's going to get charged for them. Right now, I have my, it was me, I negotiated to the hospital, and they come and say, I'm not going to pay that amount. And I can just negotiate it and tell them, say, I'll pay a minimum, and they can't charge me any extra. There was no interest fee or anything on it.
And if we want to get into some detail, there's a representative from HealthBridge here tonight. We could pull this off and put it on under new business so we can talk about it. It's on the consent agenda, so I don't know if we could ask George to step up now and answer your questions if you'd like.
If you could, I'd be most appreciative, because I don't want to take that right away from somebody that has it already. Because if you're going to take the bill over and then charge them interest, then right now, as a good example, I'm just saying me, is that I don't have to pay no interest.
Yeah, no problem. So the program, on a disputed bill, those are turned back over to North Ottawa in between them and the patient. So usually if there's a change in the bill, or if there's a disputed bill, or if a payer comes through and says this wasn't claimed correctly or wasn't coded correctly, those would be turned back over to North Ottawa, and they would work through their current repayment, so similar to what you've done there.
Absolutely.
What we would provide would be a set 3 months of 0% interest, and then a 24-month period to repay it at a set payment rate, and you can negotiate and set that at a very minimum rate. So we do have that. You can also basically have that full 24 months to pay nothing, and there's no penalty that we incur on you. There's no fees, there's nothing else. So what you're describing with HealthBridge, wouldn't change, but for those who maybe don't have the ability to do that negotiation and have a bill that's still an issue, they would have a much longer payment term with no penalties and no fees. We don't have any of those. So your case, it wouldn't change. That would be a disputed bill that would go back between the
I just don't want to take it
provider.
away from an employee.
We wouldn't
has
do
that
that for any of our
ability.
members.
I don't want them to end up paying a lot more than what they, don't need to.
Nope, absolutely.
That's why I'm
We certainly wouldn't want that for our members either. Those are our supported groups. So we would not take that away from individuals that would be allowed to have that negotiation with a provider. You have the right to dispute and change claims. And we have a process in place with North Ottawa where those disputed claims are kind of held, and then they can work through them. And if it gets turned over to us, we would handle it later. If not, it would be handled specifically between the provider group and the patient.
Are they automatically turned over to you at the time?
If they're
no
not
matter what?
disputed and there's no issues with the claims, then normally we would process those like we would with any other claim, just like you would handle if you went to North Ottawa today.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yep, absolutely. There
I
isn't
don't-
any rights taken away from any patient at all through this program.
I just want to make sure that they have the same rights they have today.
They will.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
On item G, I'd like to, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to butt in. On item G, I'd like to point out that even though it's not for the Feast of the Strawberry Moon event, even though it's not stated in the agenda item, on the June 7th, that Friday, would be effectively a Kids' Day. They'll be hosting grade school, middle school kids for presentations on the history of basically the fur trading era in Grand Haven. So that's another piece of outreach that this group does. So I'm glad to see that they're continuing with that. And in item L, the The markers on the beach, what a great idea that is. I was down there last summer when all the confusion was raining, and the public safety was down there with their ladder truck with their binoculars trying to figure out what the hell's going on, because they got so many reports from so many directions, from so many people who didn't know what they were saying or said the same thing 3 times different ways. So this is a great thing. Thank you very much to Lee Adams for spearheading this. I know he was down there at the time and he got to see what the need was. So I'm glad to see that.
Then I had 2 comments. I think, following up on item L, echo what Bob's sentiments there. Is there a ribbon cutting down there, Pat?
1 p.m. this Friday. If you can all make it down, it'll be a day to celebrate.
Yeah, that'd be great. I saw the markers out there at an event earlier this week, and they're bright and very clear, and I think that'll help out a lot. I wanted to point out, I'm really excited about item I. For those of you who don't have the agenda in front of you, it's the Meyer State Games of Michigan BMX Freestyle event to be held at the skate park over by the YMCA. Just talking with a young family who has young children, or teenage children, and they had commented on, God, there's not a lot for our kids to do in the summer. And if you're listening right now and we get some press out there about this, I think that's a great event and a great opportunity for families to get over there and check that BMX freestyle event out. We'll be going with our 2 young boys, so thank you for that. And Shar, I wondered if, I looked at their application, if they aren't going to need some sort of bleachers or something like that. I'm hoping for a lot of people to be there, so I don't know if we can reach out to them if they need that down the road. But that's all I have. I'm excited about it.
I want to, so Bob, did you say on the Strawberry Moon that's June 7th, or here, because it's here, it says June 8th and June 9th?
So the 8th and 9th are a Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
And that's when the normal Feast of the Strawberry Moon takes place. The day before that, and it's in their write-up, they'll be hosting school kids. They've done this for 3 years
So it'll be
now.
on the island? They're not going to the schools?
No, they'll be on the island.
The
They
kids
bus
are coming
them
to
in.
the island? Oh, okay, all right.
They bus them in from public schools, charter schools, private schools, and they give them some good exposure.
All right, awesome.
So it's in their write-up.
Brochure, okay. All right, just wanted to clarify that, because I thought, well, that's different date. And, you know, I want to agree with everybody on that item L. I think it's a great idea. Wish we would have had it in place last year. And there's certainly, not only is it, if you have a problem, that you'll know where the problem is, but even if you're just trying to find a friend on the beach, it's a big beach with a lot of people, and you can say, well, I'm at letter J, not A. So I think it can be, it's good to have it out there for a whole bunch of reasons. So looking forward to Friday and dedicating that. And thanks so much to Rotary and all the people that worked to make that possible. And I remember it was Lee Adams, I think, out on the beach that was so concerned about not being able to find folks. So thanks to everybody involved in that, because that's a great thing, great progress for us. All right, I think unless there's other comments, I think we're ready to vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruegger?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. All right, new business, item A.
First item under new business is to approve the first annual Rockin' the Boardwalk event hosted by WMPA 93.1 and co-sponsored by Labatt's Blue to be held at Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium on Saturday, July 6th from 2 o'clock p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Permit the consumption of alcohol and allow amplified sound. The Parks and Recreation Board and the administration recommend approval.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Support?
Been moved and seconded. Pat, do you want to address this issue?
Well, I just wanted to comment, we've got a good contingent here from WMPA.
We certainly do.
Oh, yeah, they're all filling up. They got the back row back there all filled up. There's a little unique in that there's an alternative mentioned. The radio station was kind enough to offer 2 different approaches, one in the parking lot and one in the stadium. Pluses and minuses to each location, I think, and so I just wanted to point that out. It's covered pretty well in Char's memo, I believe. She went into some detail, and she's here to flesh out any of that detail if you'd like, and of course the applicants themselves are here, and they can talk about things if you'd like to ask them questions.
Okay, just, first of all, is, anybody want to make a presentation about this? I guess I should ask. And if not, we can just ask questions. All right,
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know who drew the short straw tonight. They're having a little
maybe we should ask Shar how this.
You know, for radio people, they don't want to talk.
I don't want to talk. I can't believe it. Wait, just ask Shar how this all came about. All right, Rose. Rose drew the short straw.
Shar Sese, I'm the Community Affairs Manager for the City of Grand Haven.
Rose Dunlap, Director of Operations for WGHN Inc.
So the two options that you have on the agenda tonight are really as a result of a conversation that Rose and I were having. The initial application came in to request the use of One South Harbor for their event venue. And when you think about the holiday time and our parking issues that we have in town, I thought to myself, well, does it make good sense to use the parking lot in place of the venue that's right next door? And so a conversation was had between Rose and myself, and she never dreamed it was a possibility, or their application probably would have said that in the very beginning. So we discussed it a little bit more, made a presentation for the Parks and Recs board to review as well, and you're looking at what you have in front of you. There are pros and cons to each side. It's, a busy weekend, regardless of which area it could be held in, and we've got it worked out on each side how it could work successfully. Within the stadium, there would be a requirement that they would need to use the city's fencing. So we've talked all of those details out, and what would be needed in One South Harbor are a little bit different. They would probably use the showmobile. They would also require the same fencing, and all of the requirements that would be needed to be adhered to on either side as far as the Liquor Control Commission. All of those things would still stay in place. There's going to need to be extra portable restrooms. There are going to need to be extra trash containers. They're hiring a professional security company to manage the event regardless of which location it would be held in. So I feel like for a first-time event, they've done a really good job thinking about the really important details that we look at for an event to have success in our community, to have it be a family-friendly adult event. And I just feel like they've put all of the things in place that regardless of which location it would be. And it really was a conversation that we had that prompted the second option.
Can I just say ditto to all that? that's how it came about, and I really applaud Shar for bringing that to my attention. I didn't think it would be a possibility, but I think we've done our due diligence to kind of present our case and cross all the T's and dot the I's, and we're just excited to try it and bring some awareness to this community as far as new people that might not have been to our fair city before, bringing revenue and just kind of a, hey, Grand Haven. With WMPA, it's opened up a whole new window and whole new audience for us. So I feel that this would benefit both sides.
Okay, I guess one of a consideration I had when I was looking at this is that we've got to block off the stadium from people walking through it. And what time to put this fencing up? What time would that happen? Because I see, the stadium being full of people, maybe somebody having lunch, and this event starts at 2, and they're saying, well, if you're underage, then you need to vacate the space by the time this starts. I'm thinking, the logistics of gathering people up and inviting them to leave.
Yeah.
I just wonder, how do you do that gracefully? Because
I'll defer to Shar on that, because I think she's kind of an answer. I mean, I know what I would do, but I mean.
So we would handle it, I think, similarly to what we do with Coast Guard Festival. The stadium is fenced off for all of the events that are ticketed events for Coast Guard. They happen at a little bit later time in the day, but the stadium is open until the agreed upon close time. it is a little bit different, a little bit later for Coast Guard Festival. So the stadium would have, there would be walkways down on the boardwalk and at the front, and then half an hour before the event is to begin, it would be their responsibility to work with the people who are at the event, or inside of the park before the event, that there would be an event for adults only. That would be how I would handle it.
Yep, and that's exactly how we would handle it. Is we certainly wouldn't want to just boot somebody out. We want to just go up to them and explain to them what's happening and just be as gracious as we can with that. We're not going to be heavy-handed in any way. So it'll be just a nice, polite conversation. We don't anticipate any problems with that.
And then the same thing at 9:30, because the fountain comes on at 10, so it has to be cleaned up and opened back up for the public to come in to watch the fountain show.
Right, and we're going to have, I mean, we'll do a last call before that, so that's going to obviously clear a lot of people out right then. And I mean, I anticipate this will break down pretty quick, because it's just, you literally have up to 3 food trucks that just will go. We have the band, all their stuff, they'll be ready to clear their stage right away. We have people in place that'll help them do that very quickly. Security will start clearing whoever doesn't want to stay to watch the fountain, obviously. Start clearing people out, and then we have a cleanup crew that'll just be right behind them, cleaning things up too. So it'll happen fairly quickly.
Okay, I just want, those are some concerns I had. Just the logistics of these things are sometimes, they'll, make them some concern. So how do you get people in and out? It's not, it's a great venue, but there's just some questions that I had is how exactly is this going to work? So I don't know if other people have questions.
No, I think their choice to hire a professional security company that's going to assist with that will be also beneficial. I don't remember how many people you had.
8. But if the concern is, the stop time, we can back that up if we need to as well.
Oh.
Yes, we can be flexible on that. I mean, it's a first-year event. We can certainly be as flexible as we need to, being that it's just the first time around and everybody understands that. So we're willing to back it up if we need to, if that's a point.
I kind of have a hard time with this because the stadium, I mean, we have all these people in town for the 4th of July weekend, and then we're not going to allow families to be in there. We're going to take the kids, I mean, we're going to segregate that the stadium for this activity, and for me, I just as soon have it in the parking lot. But that's my opinion, and I think with all these people in town and to leave the stadium open for the public, I think it would be a better idea for me. That's where I'm at with it, but.
Again, we are willing
I'm just, I just don't like to see the thing all closed off on by the 4th of July weekend and not be able to the public to use it, because it's going to be for this one main event on a Saturday, one of the main Saturdays of that weekend, and I have a hard time with that.
Sure, I understand. Again, we're willing to be flexible as far as the 21 up. We will have security in place, wristbanding everybody that comes in there. If it's a point where we don't, or if it's not a 21 and up, if you're 18, because the bands that we have would draw a slightly younger crowd, people will be wristbanded and they won't be served if they're not 21. So we can be flexible and have people in there that aren't. And then we would have control on that, obviously, with our security and our personal staff as well. We're working with the VFW, who will be serving. They're trained, they're TIPS trained. They've done events like this themselves throughout the year. So we're relying on them to not serve anybody that isn't wristbanded.
I just want to tell you, after dealing with my brother and my brother Eagle members and how we do it down there, exactly the thing is you hire a security firm to come in and take care of it. I applaud you for that. That's a great thing. Just kind of follow what they do a little bit. You'll understand that even for cleanup, they even hire Boy Scouts come in afterwards and they clean up downtown. They do that also. Just keep the community involved a little bit. I think this is a great idea. I think it's a good way to go, a test run for our stadium, and we can move forward with it. How else are we going to know? We want to put concerts on ourselves. We hired a firm to come in and do 4 concerts for us. this is a good opportunity for us to take a look at and see how it operates and see how it goes. I'm all for trying it out once, and it's on the 6th, it's not the 4th. The 4th is gonna be really packed. And yes, they may hang around, but I think it's an opportune time that we can get something going. It's a great time I think timing is good for a concert of whatever. So I'm gonna vote yes for you, so I think it's a good idea for us to move forward.
Well, I guess it's my turn. I would say events like this are one of the reasons we invested in Waterfront Stadium. And so thank you for taking advantage of that and hosting an event like this, or allowing us to present the venue, and you guys put on a good show. I think WGHN has invested in our community for many, many years, and echo Mike's sentiments as far as this being kind of a trial run. The Waterfront Stadium is new to us, and we'll see how it goes. I have no doubt that you guys are going to pull it off without a hitch. I'm even looking at the food trucks there, and I understand the alcohol needs to go, but I'd love it if the food truck stayed there later. You could serve people while the musical fountain's going on there. Wonderful festive venue downtown, and I'm thrilled to see you guys take advantage of it. So thank you. I'll be voting in favor of this as presented.
Yeah, I think this adds another dimension to Waterfront Stadium as well, and I think it's a good idea, at least to try, see how it works out. As far as excluding the public from it, well, it's not, as you noted, it's not unlike Coast Guard Festival, which is even busier, and we exclude public who are not paying for tickets during those events. We move them out, move them in. So I don't think that's unlike what we do at other busy times. So I don't really have a problem with that. Yeah, I guess the only concern I would have was if you're going to be reopened and fill the stadium for the musical fountain show. You have in your right up here, the event goes from 9 to 9:30 p.m. You need a hard stop, and cleanup is listed as 10 p.m. to midnight. You're going to have a stadium full of people, so maybe cleanup needs to happen very quickly just before that.
Absolutely.
That'd be my only concern here is the times you've listed in this memo. It's kind of coinciding.
Just to interject, Bob,
Yes.
the actual physical application that you're looking at was from their first location.
Okay.
So we will make sure, as we do for all events that happen at the stadium, that the event is cleaned up and ready to go for the rest of the public to watch the musical fountain from.
Yeah, that would be necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not?
Ready?
All right, I think, I'm gonna support this for tonight, but I'm for the purpose of this, I'm gonna see how it works, and I wanna, find out what, how it goes, and then we can, make an adjustments from that as we go forward. So, because it is it's like Coast Guard Festival, their events are in the evening. It's not in the middle of the afternoon, so that is a bit different. And so to shut it down in the early in the day like that is totally different than like Coast Guard events. But I'm willing to take a chance and see how it goes, and we'll kind of play it by ear and get reports back and see it, see what how you evaluate it, see what worked, what didn't work. So, okay, all right.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
McCaleb?
Yes. All right, item C, with an explanation from Pat.
Next item is to accept the quote and approve the contractor services agreement from Mid-State Security in the amount of $83,573.49 for the installation of the Pure Life Ring monitoring system, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
Did you want me to do it now or after there was a motion and support?
Oh, I guess we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The reason I just wanted to fill in a little bit of a blank here is that we've entered into contracts with the King Company to spend just over $1 million, and then we're also looking at another, $40,000 plus for the electrical system. when we were initially looking at the whole budget, we were looking at the electrical system and the communications gear being around 75,000 for both. And now it's looking like we're going to be considerably over that mark. We also have to pay for all the recognition hardware we have to buy. So, should you approve this tonight, it'll be provided we get this done without any contribution from the general fund. This is all coming from monies raised that are held at the community foundation, and I just wanted to be clear about that.
And that's for both items, the electric and the.
Right, and we're gonna be bringing back the electric. The electric's actually a little more urgent than I won't place a priority on either one. It's just that we wanna have a dedication of the catwalk structure, and we really can't do that till we get the lights on. And you can't really connect the communication system till you have the electricity, so we do have to get them both done. We really have to get the electric done first before I believe it. Dan's here. Does the electric need to be done before the communications gear can be activated?
Not necessarily, because they'll be in two different conduits. So what the plan is for the contractors is start after the section between the lights is finished. So they'll do that first half. Both contractors, the electrical contractors I've spoke to and then Mid-State, say it's about 4 weeks of work. So they'll hopefully have the outer half done before they can even get on the intersection. Then once King is done with that intersection, hopefully they can try to follow him a little bit, but I don't really want to get the parties, in the way of the installation of the catwalk. So we're looking at a maximum of 2 weeks after the last section of catwalk is put in to have electric and communication restored. If everything goes, with weather and whatnot. Obviously with the high water, it makes it a little tough.
I went out there this afternoon and looked at the catwalk vents, and my feet got wet, so.
I'm sure they did.
Pretty wet out there today.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
Not much. So Dan,
Much wave action today.
the electrical that we're not voting on tonight, you had
Correct.
solicited multiple quotes, got two.
Mhm.
Don't know what the reasons it got pulled, but that's not what we're looking at tonight. For the communication system, the alarming system for Mid-State,
Mhm.
you didn't seek multiple quotes?
No, we began talking with Mid-State from the beginning. They were the installers and had the design for the original system. And the plan was at the onset of the project was to use some of that old communication equipment, but in the 2 years that we've had it sitting over for planks, it's obsolete now. So we really have to start from scratch. We thought it made the most sense to go to them since they're familiar with the catwalk. They know exactly what needs to go on. There's no design involved. They already had the old design, so all they really had to do was go from individual wires. They're using Cat5 communication cable now.
Yeah, and I would think that this is something that other contractors could have given you a legitimate comparable quote. I think that for the amount of money it is, I'm surprised that we're not looking at multiple quotes.
Yes, I discussed that, but we don't have a design. We would have had to hire another company to either Avon Marsh to design it or another tech company.
This appears
design
to have been a design build in the first place.
I'm sorry?
This appears to have been a design build in the first place, and so they have a design. So I would think anybody could do that as well. I did this kind of stuff for 30 years in my other job, and we would have contractors come in and make proposals,
Sure.
especially when you had $88,000 at stake.
Okay. I'd be happy.
Especially when we're over budget for this project.
Right.
Just seems to me like it would have been a good move.
I'd be happy to get other quotes. It wouldn't be a problem.
That's what I would like to see.
Well, the way, from my understanding, what this alarm system does, whether you go get other quotes or not, I thought it was kind of fascinating. Because from my understanding, if you lift a ring, it activates cameras, which will go to that location. The lights go off, and it calls 911. That all triggers just by lifting a ring when somebody's in trouble on the water.
Yes.
And just as an aside, it's a violation of law to mess with these things, to lift a ring in a not emergency situation. But this pretty sophisticated alarm system And I think we'll be very lucky to have it in operation. And hopefully it'll save lives out there. You know, there people get in trouble on the water, so I thought that was pretty cool. Yes, Pat?
Dan, the Mid-State Security, they installed the original system that was out there
Correct.
and worked on it for us. And do you recall about what year that went in? Was that 2006 or 2005?
I don't remember the year, but I do know that this system is less than the original installation.
The what now?
The original installation was right around 100, so the dollar amount's less, but I don't recall the year.
Okay, and I believe it was back around 2005 or so, because we had the tragic fall in 2003, and that's when all the significant fundraising began, and there was a considerable push for a couple of years, and then we installed that system. And we've got a good relationship with Mid-State. They've been reliable as far as doing repairs and charging us what we feel is a fair and reasonable amount when we do need to have them come out.
Correct, yeah, I mean, they do our monitoring for all the buildings that we have other systems in, whether it be fire or security. They do all of our monitoring. I wasn't heavily involved in the maintenance of the alarm circuit. It was it was public safety mostly. But I've never had any problems with them. But
So should I ask Mr. Padding these questions then? Is he prepared to answer this? I'm kidding, Matt.
He was ready.
He was ready to go, right?
Yeah, Dan's throwing
He was
public
gonna come up
safety
and
under
answer
the
it.
bus. But I guess the other point I'm trying to bring out is I think we've got this existing relationship. It's gone well, so I understand why Dan went to Mid-State, got a quote. It's been, 13, 14 years of a successful run, probably saved many lives out there, always on the spot, on the stick, getting the thing fixed. I don't think I've ever gotten a report of it being, malfunctioning or not working at any time. It's always been functional and working, which is rare. No offense, Dan, most of the facilities go pretty well, but it does seem like we've got a lot of hiccups with a lot of our tech, and this one's been pretty consistent, so I sure don't fault DPW, and I take responsibility for it. I put it on the agenda because I recognize the vendor, and I thought, well, we will have the money that is being paid for with non-taxpayer funds. That doesn't mean we're being frivolous or not doing our homework, and we can go out and get other bids. I'm just afraid that we'll go out and sometimes you get what you pay for, and with Mid-State Security, we've been very fortunate to have a good, long-lasting relationship, and sometimes that's worth what you pay for it. So it is a cheaper system, but I think it's cheaper because technology is
correct.
gotten easier and better out there. So just the type of system we're putting in is less costly than what we put in 13 years or so ago.
And just to note, we are over a little bit on this system. The original estimate was around $75,050 for the electric. So we're a little bit under on the electric estimates and a little bit over on this. So together, we're actually a little bit under what we originally estimated.
So is
that both would cost.
Was it $83,573.49 or?
Correct.
$88,573.49.
No, 88 was the original price, and we went through and found some discrepancies with their pricing, and they reduced that price.
All right, because in our memo, in our packet, it says 88.
My apologies. Yeah.
No, Dan, I would.
I'm sorry, and Bob said you were out there today?
Yes.
Were they working today, or was
No.
it, so nothing, no evidence
So
of
there
any?
were just a couple of foolish people out there about to get swept off the pier.
Okay.
I was one of them.
Bob was one of them. I think I would echo Bob's sentiments as far as traditionally we like to see at least 3 quotes, and I would say, next time it'd be better to have those up front. I think given the long-term relationship with this contractor and the need for a safety system out there on the pier as we approach spring and the busy time, and the additional time it would take to bid it out at this point, when they weigh all of those, I lean in favor of supporting this as presented, especially given the relationship and the need for security out there as soon as possible. So, my thoughts.
Well, I don't know how long it takes to rebid something or to have somebody redesign something, but as this, we're coming up on June real quick, and that hopefully if the weather holds and we can get the catwalk vents back up in a good fashion, good time. I hate to see us working on saving, you don't know how much money, or it could come in higher, that they have a good system and to have it ready to go. I don't have a big issue with this either, so, but it'd be interesting to see what else is out there, but I don't know, we know what we've got, we know who we're dealing with, and they're ready to go whenever the vents are ready, so, I don't want to see a big delay just because we're out looking for the alternatives.
I don't want to see a big delay either, so I'd probably support this, but, when we're talking this much money, I want to see 3 bids from now on. I don't like seeing 1 bid. And the time delay, I think, is a concern, so I think...
It won't be a time delay. I mean, if council's not comfortable with this, I have no problem getting the bids. I mean, we come back to the next meeting in the next 2 weeks. I'll ask Pat for a little bit of grace on the agenda deadline, and we'll probably get other quotes for it. I want council to be comfortable with it, and it's not a problem, because we're not gonna start, we won't start in the next 2 weeks anyway. They're not gonna have that first section done. It probably won't be 3 weeks until they can actually get out there and start, so, unless the weather's really good.
I like the idea of 3 bids, but now we have a contractor that just submitted and showed everybody what he's bidding, so I have a problem with that too, so. We should have got the 3 bids to begin with, the sealed bids, and so either way, I know when they're showing their hand already, and I really don't like that because everybody else knows what they're bidding against now. Right. So I'm going to support this, but I don't like the way it's going down.
Okay. Dan, I'm not going to beat you up anymore. I've done that before and the same thing, so I'm not going to continue the route here.
Thank you.
But I do remember when we got him out there the first time is when we had some major drownings out there, and we needed to do something, and they came forward and they actually did a good job. It was over $100,000, if I do remember correctly when I was sitting here, and it has saved lives. It made people more aware. And I know they do a great work, because they do work, like you say, for public safety and everybody else around here. They're they have a very good name at it. So I'm in support of them. I know the work they do, and I've seen it, and it's just, and having it laid out the way they did, they probably already have a plan. They could follow it so much easier for them. But I won't go that route. You did good, but next time.
Yes, sir.
That's good enough.
So, what's everybody want to do? Are we going to vote on this?
Voting on it.
Okay. Does any?
Ready?
All right.
Netza?
No.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. It's a good idea not to show what the bids are before you have the right amount. Good point. Right. Next item.
Next item is to approve the Office of Neighborhood Housing Services to submit applications for an NEP grant and an HEP grant to promote owner investment in housing stock and provide homeowner education in Ottawa and Muskegon counties. The administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
All right. Moved and seconded. Rhonda, you want to tell us what your grants are going to cover? You tell us who you are, since I just identified you.
I'm Rhonda.
Have a lineup.
Good evening. I'm Rhonda Klein from Neighborhood Housing Services. The easiest one, the HEP, I figured your questions are going to be to explain your acronyms because we have so many. That's the Housing Education Program. That's the grant that we submit every year. Last July is when we added Muskegon County to our service area because we've talked about this before, but Muskegon County lost their agency that provides these services, and so in order for those residents to not have to travel 40, 50 or more miles, we took in that county to serve them. So it's the education services like mortgage default prevention, home buyer education, pre-purchase individual counseling, those types of education services. And so this year, the maximum that we're allowed to ask for is $40,000, so that's what we submitted our application for. We budgeted at the amount that we've been getting the last couple of years, which is 30. We're kind of hoping that because we have 2 counties in there now that they're going to maybe bump it up and give us 40, but we won't know until we get the answer back. And then the NEP grant, that's the Neighborhood Enhancement Program. This is a new program that MISTA is offering. These are state funds, not federal funds. If you remember last fall, we were awarded a home grant. A home grant is federal funds, and there are no longer home grant funds being allowed for single-family homeownership programs. So the $160,000 we got to do 4 projects is no longer, that type of money is no longer available. So MISTA is allocating state funds to allow us to apply for programs like this NEP program. And I will say this, they've been doing this program for 2 or 3 years. Actually, this is round 4, so it's almost 4 years. And this is the first time that they've allowed local units of government to apply. So the first 3 rounds we couldn't apply because we were not a 501c3 nonprofit. So we were fortunate for that. And it's typically a program that they want to be neighborhood enhancement. They want to see neighborhood beautification type projects, you know, build a new park, enhance a park, porch painting type projects. We applied a little bit differently, and we felt like we had a pretty compelling argument that Grand Haven, because we don't have blighted neighborhoods here in Grand Haven, we have, you know, scattered site properties. And so we presented that in our grant and asked to be able to use the funds throughout the entire city of Grand Haven. And that's what we, through the RFP, that's what has been accepted. Now we have to do the formal application, but they've accepted our proposal up to this point. So we're being, our proposal was, because the maximum we can ask for is $50,000. So our proposal was to do 6 homeowner rehab projects at $7,500 each. So it's similar to the other grant program that we have. The nice thing that they changed about this program also this year is they're allowing us to go up to 120% of area median income rather than the typical 80%. So there are some households in that gap that often get left out. We actually have several on a waiting list right now who wanted to work with our 80% program, who are ineligible because their income is too high, and we'll be able to hopefully help them in July if this application goes through. That was a lot. Any questions?
So you're saying it's not neighborhood, it's, we can do any house, any place in Grand Haven that needs some extra help, well, LTLC.
Yes, in the city, yep.
It's better than a neighborhood by neighborhood.
It's a broader concept, better than just
Yes.
pinpointing just one little area, so I think this is much better for us. We can get out there and take care of some of the homes that we really need help them with, so.
Yes.
Much better than, because we were only focused in one area before, and now we can focus around the whole town and help out.
Yes. Yes, and we've seen the, when we do one house on a block, we've seen the impact that it can have on the entire block, and,
Sure.
you know, how successful we are with using that model, so.
It does work.
Yes, it does.
I think I want to echo some, or share some excitement at 2 things. One, we've got a grant here that is specific for the city of Grand Haven, and there's another broader grant that's in partnership with Muskegon County. And we've talked about housing affordability being a semi-regional issue for the city of Grand Haven, and we've challenged ourselves to step up and be leaders in that effort. And this grant is evidence that we are doing just that. And then I want to backtrack. 2 weeks ago, I came across Denny and my desk the approval for the weekly, or excuse me, every 2 week, the budget allocations of the expenditures that the city puts out. And one of those was for a grant for a homeowner in Grand Haven Township. And so we are really making a difference in housing affordability in our community. And this is a part of that success. So thank you, Rhonda.
Yes.
And then specifically with this one, that 120% AMI is gonna open this up for a lot of other folks
Yes.
who might not otherwise qualify for it, so that's great. One thing you said specifically, as far as that home grant goes, while we received, we could have received up to $160,000 previously, they're no longer doing that at the federal level for single-family residential, which leads me to the question, are they doing it for multi-family residential or
Yeah,
something along those lines that we could be looking into?
Yeah, I'll explain that a little bit better. The state of Michigan is choosing to not designate any of those federal home funds into to their single-family homeownership side of MISTA. So I believe the number is about $18 million that MISTA receives in federal home funds, and they're all being designated to the rental rehab division at MISTA.
Okay.
So,
So then, rather than the question being the multifamily potential, there's some rental rehab money that may be available? I know I'm putting you on the spot there.
yeah,
If they've allocated funds to a different portion or a different grant funding process, could we be tapping into those, is what I'm interested in. It may not be a question for today, it may be something to look into
sure,
down the road.
absolutely. Yep.
So,
I can't say definitely yes or no, but we definitely always keep our eyes open on every grant that MISTA does. So if it's an opportunity, yes, we'll look at it.
That's great. And again, just a part of the whole housing affordability package that we can offer here in the city of Grand Haven, so, yeah. thank
So
you.
if it's, I know that this isn't part of it, but it intrigues me, a rental rehab, is that applied for by the owner or the renter? I'm guessing by the owner.
Lots of questions.
And why isn't the owner using the money that he's making off the rent to fix up his house?
Question.
Good question.
Well, one just question just leads to another. Anyway, but I know there's no answer, but.
And I could shed a little light on that as a landlord who owns the property. So the entry price for a purchase of a rental property or a property in Grand Haven is so high that there's often not funds left over to rehab it and bring it into a reasonable condition. So.
This is a house that's presently being rented. That is income.
You've got a case-specific one.
Income producing property right now.
Okay.
That's what I was referring to.
Yep.
I will address the home grant that we are doing the 4 projects on right now. We have 3 in the city and 1 in Grand Haven Township. And then, like Josh mentioned, we are working with our neighbors in collaboration with some of our grants, and that's been going really well. And Pat asked me last week, well, why did this NEP grant, why is that only for the city? And they had some very specific guidelines that we had to follow in each area, each municipality. They had to meet the income guidelines. And we met it here for the city of Grand Haven, but our neighbors did not. Spring Lake Township did, but then based on their size, they didn't really meet the neighborhood definition. So either if it was based on income or neighborhood, we couldn't fit any of our neighbors into the guidelines. So that's why it's just for the city for this one.
I'd just like to comment that watching over the years how the policies have changed and the grants have changed and the objectives have changed, I've always been concerned that neighborhood housing service has been kind of a shoestring that we've just kept it going along, but it's gotten bigger and better, and you've kept on top of all that. So I mean, that's quite an acrobatic act on your part, and I appreciate that you have the competence and willingness to do all that, because it is a great service to the community. And it seems like every time you come here, there's something different or some different twist or some different target. And so I'm glad you're on top of that and that it's working out for the community. It's been something that I think has been evolving year after year.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We spend a lot of time discussing how to
I bet you do.
how to meet those those definitions, yeah.
All right, I think we're ready to vote.
Ruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item.
Next item is to direct the city treasurer to issue 2018-19 snowmelt billings in the total amount of $55,470.80. The administration recommends approval.
Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
In support.
Okay, Pat, where does this fall in our annual snow melt billings? Is this high, low, or in the middle? I can't remember.
It's pretty average. It's a little higher this year due to some underground valves we needed to replace this last year, and we had been carrying a balance. Each year we had been billing $5,000 over, so we could try to build up a little bit of a surplus in case of capital needs, and we had some of those needs this last year. So we came up a little over $8,000, well, just under $9,000 that we need to make up for this year. So that really added to it, because otherwise it was a probably lighter than normal winter, but you add those costs in. So it was 55,000. Last year was 40. Year before that, we had an all-time low of 24,000. Of course, our highest ever was 13 at about 110,000.
Right.
Looks like Ashley is frantically trying to get that table up in front of you while I stall further.
Okay.
There it is. They're the historical costs right there.
Oh, okay.
That Scott can probably share with our friends at home, so they know what the downtown property owners have invested in operating that system. It's been a considerable amount each year, and if you look at the, we've given you the individual billings, and it's considerable payments that many of those property owners need to make down there.
So even, because we were running off the aux boiler quite a bit this year, so it didn't go sky high with that.
Yeah, when they weren't in the early and late, the shoulders, they were running the auxiliary boiler because they were shut down.
Especially the times I had my ice skates on, I was down there on it.
Well,
I can see that,
Yeah, well, I was down there, I seen the ice.
all right, any comments, questions?
So you say the maintenance fund in deficit this year to the tune of 86, and that was valve repairs?
Yes, they had to dig up some valves and
What's it?
replace them.
We normally go after $5,000 a year, put in a maintenance fund. Was there no balance in that fund?
There was some, I could get you the exact dollars and how they calculated that 8,700.
Then we came out over and above that by 8,700, 85?
Correct.
That must be an exceptional amount for 1 year.
It is. And
Was there any thought of spreading that out over more than 1 year?
well, I think coming up, we have got some real significant, I think it's going to be a paradigm shift as we move into the new snowmelt energy phase. We're looking at maybe $1 million plus of capital costs, so we're really going to have to redefine how we do this. I think this may be the second to last year. Next year, you'll probably get another chance to approve a bill similar to this, but then after that, we've got to find a new way to do this if we're going to have snowmelt heat. And so I believe you will be getting presented with a lot of alternatives, a lot of different ways to approach this. If we're looking at natural gas, it's going to be a considerably different looking concept, because now we're charging you for thermal energy and electric. There's going to be a very different world coming year after next. So the answer to that is no, because I think we only have like next year left.
Yeah, I understand with the unknowns coming up that may not be a realistic approach. If we foresaw the same conditions year after year, if this was a few years ago, that might be more realistic.
Yep.
To try to spread that out, because that's the whole point of the $5,000 per year, is to spread it out and provide stable billing. And of course, I've never really agreed with the way we allocate costs, but that's about to come to an end as well. I'm sure there'll be a totally new way of doing it. All right, well, that was my biggest concern, was it is a higher than average operating cost year, and we have on top of that a lot of maintenance. But those have to be paid.
All righty, any other questions? We can vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruegger?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. All right, item F.
And the next item is to adopt the proposed budget, millage rates, 1% tax administration fee, fee schedule, and capital improvement plan for the city of Grand Haven fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020. The administration recommends approval.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Support. All righty, so this is to approve the budget. I did look at the adjustments made in the what we were charging for fees. I see that there was adjustments made, so I appreciated the effort that went into that. And other than that, anybody else, that was my main concern, the fees that we charge, that they should be reasonable, so.
Make them reasonable and make them baby steps,
Yeah.
so we can get to the actual cost. I'm glad you made the adjustments toward that, I really
Yep.
am. Otherwise, if we would've left it the way it was just astronomical for everybody to bite at first, so. Thanks, administration, and I always say this 1% tax administrative fee, I'm against it when it first came, and I'll say it again, but I'm not gonna go into a long spiel like I always do on it, saying that the people that are paying taxes, and now we're paying somebody to make them pay taxes, so it's kinda crazy. But I'm gonna agree to it, but I disagree to the 1% administrative fee.
Right, any other comments?
I'll just comment on fees, that when you don't charge enough for fees, because they don't cover costs, everybody else helps to pay that fee. So when you hold your fees artificially low, then the general taxpayer is paying the difference for you.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
Fritz?
Yes?
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. All right, report by city council, who wants to start?
Well, I'll start. Everybody's waiting for me usually to start, so I'll start.
Start. You're on.
First of all, I was glad to be out at the catwalk, for the catwalk. We had a little presentation out there. The mayor was there, Pat was there, and we had the whole group from the catwalk was out there. It was really nice to see them get started on it initially and report to everybody how it was going. Was it Channel 13 was there, and it was really good to get the news out there on the catwalk. Also, I went to the Planning Commission, and they started the introduce them on the medical marijuana and that, which was very interesting, and they had a lot of questions, and they're going to work hard on it. They just want to get the whole view of what is going on, which is good. That's a good start for us. And I went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which was another long night, 2 nights in a row. I mean, 3 hours in one night and another 3.5 hours. And Ryan, you were both of them, just like I was, so it was quite interesting there. And that's still an ongoing episode, so that's next month again. Other than that, just wish they'd turn the heat up a little bit. I mean, this hot, cold is not good for our flowers.
Oh, they're all shivering, oh my.
So make sure you guys take care of your flowers. I know a lot of people put them out there, so, yeah. And our tigers, well, hey, they'll be there someday.
It's a building year, right?
Yeah, that's what they keep telling me. Yeah, they say it's rebuilding, so, and same with West Michigan is the same way, so it's all rebuilding. That's all I have to report.
All right, next. Nothing?
The only thing I've got is the ribbon cutting at the state park last week Friday. It was great. The governor was there, spoke, said a few words, and celebrating 100 years of state parks in the state of Michigan. And that's a pretty cool thing. I saw one of our gentlemen in the audience was also there, Mike, and that was a good event. That's I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks.
Did you, can I add to your state park, did you remind them that we sold it to them? And did you offer to buy it back for 100 times more?
I almost did, Mike. I
That's
almost walked up to the governor.
If I was there, I would have said that, you know that.
Yeah. Times 100.
Well, you beat me to that one, Mike.
I always do that. We go to Lansing, I always offer them to buy it for 100 times more than what they bought it from us.
I should have had a $100 bill in my pocket. Could have made that impression.
Well, I missed all those good meetings because I was on vacation on a road trip. We drove over 4,000 miles in 9 days, so I spent a lot of time behind the wheel of a car. But I kept up with the news. The only other thing I'd like to comment on is see that the elm tree down here on Washington, that we did get the sidewalk put in around it.
Yes.
I see they had to chop up a little bit of roots in the process, but, well, we tried. Better than just chopping deep. So anyway, I think that's a pretty important specimen tree. And that's about all I got.
Okay, well, today is let's see, June 20. Next month is the sound system debut for the musical fountain, so June 20th, 10:10, be there for the sound investment debut. Also want to thank our Public Works guys for doing such a great job in fixing up Bolt Park. Did a very nice job. It's very new sidewalk in there and new plantings, and it looks very good. Yeah, part of we were there at, to celebrate the catwalk and watching it come back on. That was awesome. It's so good to see it back. Went to the BLP meeting, and been enjoying those on a monthly basis. But I also wanted to, Jack made this announcement, I wanted to bring it forward at City Council meeting, that the APPA, which is the American Public Power Association, the 48 facilities in the nation are recognized as on being excellent systems. Aside from demonstrating reliability, these designated utilities have shown commitment to system improvement, safety, and developing a strong and sustainable workforce. The RP3 designation lasts for 3 years, and the City of Grand Haven Board of Light and Power is at the platinum level in this award system. So they were good work. Interior criteria include sound business practices, utility-wide commitment to safe and reliable delivery of electricity. So congratulations to BLP for winning, for being awarded the platinum level in public power. And we are the beneficiaries of that reliability and sound business practices. So thanks very much. Also went to the ZBA meeting. That was fascinating. And Monday, next Monday is the Memorial Day Parade, which will be ending at Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium once again. So we may do a back and forth between Central Park, because I know everybody liked that last year out of necessity, but there are other reasons we're going to end up back at Lynn Sherwood Stadium. But anyway, next Monday night, Memorial Day Parade, honor our soldiers and all those that have given their lives for us in the course of our history of our nation. It's very important to remember all the sacrifices made. So I would turn it over to Pat and the city manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. First up, I wanted to look at the community center plan, review the drawings. And I don't know if Ashley can get any of those pictures up there from the memo that was in your packet. I think they did a pretty good job of reducing the profile and the impact of that improvement from the street. It's at the very end of your packet. I got to scroll all the way down there. There it is. There was some concern what they had before was maybe a little too much of a change and a significant visual impact from the street. And I think they really toned it down, lowered that fence level, took off what was coming off the end of the building there and wrapping around the building, so things kind of stopped there at the end of the building. It also, I don't know if you can zoom in on that, or maybe go to the next page there, the next one down.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess maybe that shows you a little bit of what the vestibule might look like. That was sort of abstract-y last time. You wanted to see that a little more clearly, and if you go up, you can kind of see how that interfaces with the deck. There would be a door on the other side of that vestibule that goes right out onto that patio. It's right at grade there, and that grade would just carry along that whole front of the building there and be one long continuous surface there.
Might want to go a couple more, and it shows the picnic tables.
Oh, down.
Go down. Keep going.
There you go. So the top there is what the round tables could be configured as. Again, I think before some of the drawings made it look like a little more dramatic. When you shorten that fence and show the actual scale of the tables with the people, I think it's a little less imposing, a little less dramatic than maybe what you had seen before. I think sometimes the artists tend to be a little bit enthusiastic, and they think that the owner really wants to see some dramatic change, so they portray it as such. I think maybe there's a little more. To me, it just, when I first looked at it, I thought, well, that looks a little more realistic and practical. And if you scroll down a little more, you can see the rectangular tables. Again, the layout of what they might look like and how it might look if people were sitting at those. And in this particular case, there are no umbrellas out there. kind of like the idea with umbrellas, because right there, that, on a July afternoon, that looks like it would be not well used in the blazing sunlight. So the community center was meeting tonight, the community center board, and Shar was here earlier, but presuming they looked at this and felt like they liked the treatments that were being presented by the architect, they'd like to go out and get bids and come back and present those to city council sometime later this summer. And I think that's the direction that they left here under in January, was with the understanding that they would, still, they're doing all the improvements to the fascia and the steps on the west end of the building there. That's all part of the project, and then this portion as well. So I wanted to point that out. Also, we have a special event coming your way. It is the Young Professionals Slide into Summer, a group that advocates networking among young professionals locally. Has asked if they could have an event at Mulligan's Hollow on the first Saturday of Coast Guard Week, where they would have a slip and slide on the hill where people sled in the wintertime, and it would be 21 and over, because they would plan on partnering with a local brewer and have beer available and slide down the hill. A little out of the ordinary. Just like everything else, your loyal and effective and efficient public safety and public works crews say, if you want to do it, they can do it, but they both have reservations. Public safety, that it's at a time of year when their resources are stretched to the maximum, and to put an all-day beer festival in Mulligan's Hollow on the Saturday of Coast Guard Week might not be the best timing. But again, their treatment of the issue was it's doable, and they can make it happen, and they can do the best they can to keep it safe. But they did issue concern and reservation that maybe this isn't the best time for it, or even the best place to start doing this. Public Works, reservations about the condition of the grass at the bottom of the hill. We have irrigated things at the bottom of the hill where we're trying to make that look nice in the summertime. Up on the hill itself, it's kind of scrub where people ski down, but when you get to the bottom of the hill, and if you pack that many people in there and have a big festival, they're a little bit worried about what it might do to the turf. So again, they're a little bit reserved about it. They're not jumping up and down with enthusiasm. And then finally, our insurance provider recommended that we receive copies of their policies prior to approving and allow our insurer to go over it with some detail. So those are just some things I wanted to point out. I would say that, for a public event on public property, to go on a steep hill and put a big piece of plastic and soak it down and serve people a bunch of beer and tell them to go sliding down there is not a typical thing that municipalities do, or that municipalities allow on their property. But they're thinking outside the box and asking for something creative, and they can sure ask. So I'm tempering my enthusiasm. I'm happy to bring it to you at your next meeting and put it on the agenda under new business, but it will likely be with a fairly neutral recommendation from staff. I don't think it's the best idea, and I don't know, maybe you will, but we will need to do a considerable amount of work. When I saw it come forward for the agenda, I was somewhat surprised, particularly the timing of it. We do our best to encourage people when they come in with new events to try to push them towards the shoulders. The main season is pretty clogged up, and everybody wants to come in and put on their big event, especially during Coast Guard. And so that week is sort of a tough week to approve big new events that could draw quite a large crowd on the day that we're trying to, we're carrying out the big annual YMCA run, happens in the morning there. Mm-hmm. Then we've got the kids parade, which is a very big event. Our guys are pretty parched. It's a big deal. And that night is always a very festive evening in Grand Haven. So they're fully engulfed in what's going on. And so to throw this in there would just be one more thing to tax our current staff a little more. So it will probably come to you without an enthusiastic recommendation. Just wanted to cover that with you. The state park conceptual plans are out in the lobby, and I just wanted to show those to you. I was so enthusiastic that the state park shared these with us. These are very early conceptual plans on what they want to do with the pavilion down there. And it's gracious that they're sharing this information with you. It's certainly not anything set in stone. They're just putting some, you can see these are just big blocks. But what they're thinking is much of that area that used to be a concession area, they're going to open that up and maybe put some overhead garage doors going out to the beach with some small spots for vendors, perhaps to line the one side of the building. Redo the bathrooms considerably, put a little garage in one corner where they can get some beach equipment and things, maybe a four-wheeler in there. Still have a small rentable space in the other corner of the building, and I just thought it was great they were sharing that with us. If I actually could go to the next slide, that this shows a little more detail with those overhead doors, but also shows the second floor. They are planning on investing in an elevator. That upstairs space is essentially unusable without an elevator. They don't have any immediate plans for that, but for now they're just calling it an office maintenance area. But perhaps in the future with an elevator, they might be able to convert that into some usable, perhaps rentable space. And I would think that would be very, very unique space for somebody to be able to, as a vacation rental. We'll have to see if it's in our short-term rental area. They'll have to get a special use for that. But very interesting that, that I think is, it sure is underutilized space. It's a beautiful location, and right now there's really nothing in there. So they're proposing to at least get that ready to maybe be used as something. Yeah, these are just some conceptuals just showing how they conceived of the area. They've got a whole planning department there, so they're working on it. So I just thought I'd share that with you. They shared it. They're the elevations. And you can see from that east elevation, you can see where that new elevator shaft is on the side of that building. So that's a bit of a change. But that's a historic building. They had a lot of discussion about tearing it down or redoing it, and decided they wanted to, it's a kind of an iconic design from, I don't know when it was built, but they wanted to keep the essential structure as much the same as they could.
Very good. I have a lot of memories of that place. I worked there when I was a kid for 35 cents an hour. And the upper level was actually rented, actually the people that rented that facility was the Ellis's. It's owned Ellis parking lots. And young Ed was the guy that ran the beach place, so he lived up there. So I spent some time up there. It's a nice view.
It is a nice view. Finally, we're looking at doing a meeting with the BLP, the Snowmelt Committee, Mike.
Yes.
And with that Friday, the 31st, would it be better in the morning or at noontime?
Friday's really not a good day for me.
Yeah, I told them that, and they came back, and the other option, Jerry's going to be out of town.
I'll try and make it the best I can. Try and make it in the morning. I would say, let me check and see what the schedule looks like.
Thing in the morning?
Yeah.
Take a look and let me know so we can get that nailed down.
Want me to come over to the shop? I'll spray some panels for you.
Yeah, you got a West End and Buff. I don't think you want to do that.
I don't think you
Friday
want
has
to
to
spray
be.
panels either.
You got to put cars together and get them done. Let me take a look, and if it's early in the morning, I can get it done. I can work a little later at night then.
I'll ask if they can give us some other dates.
No, that's fine. I'll make it work, but if it's early in the morning, it's fine. That way, we'll be good.
Okay, and we've got 1 minute left to make it for ice cream.
Call it adjourned. Oh, we can't. Public
Oh,
comment.
yeah, public comment.
Too
No,
late,
I
yeah.
didn't, I would want to make one comment about the slip and slide thing, as we're talking at Coast Guard Festival about looking at their venues, looking to not add new events, so we're asking them not to do that, for us to get a request for the city then to add an event that neither public safety nor public works likes. I'm not sure that's a good idea. So, besides the fact of slip sliding down a hill, holding a beer probably probably not a real good idea, so.
Makes you remember.
So,
Hey,
whatever.
at a different time, maybe.
Yeah, different time, different place.
Oh, well.
That's
We'll
just
see when
fine.
it comes.
That's right. Anyway, call the audience. Anybody like to make a comment? This is your opportunity. Just come out, Mike, tell us who you are. Mike, tell us where you live. Mike?
Weavers, Lake Avenue. Just a quick comment on.
Catch that, Linda? Okay.
On the proposed, you're proposing a new zoning ordinance. I'd just like it, right? Is that still on the go?
Which ordinance?
You're going to redo the zoning ordinance, is that still?
Oh, we're looking at some changes, yeah.
Well,
Just
isn't it a
at
redo
some
of the whole thing?
adjustments. Yeah, with in-house, yeah.
amendments to it. They're not doing the whole thing, but they're making significant amendments.
Right.
Well, anyways, in regards to that, I wanted to make sure that you considered restoring property rights to people that lost them during the last ordinance. And just as an example, on the Clinton Street corridor, those were all zoned, that was all zoned multifamily at one time, up till then, actually. And then it got downzoned to single family. So where we're at today, and nobody knew about that ordinance as far as it was happening, but because it was done as one big package, you didn't have to notice people if they were losing some rights. So you had to actually look into the ordinance. But anyways, I knew it caused some troubles, but I was really kind of disappointed when I found out that a neighbor of mine off of Clinton Street, he wanted to add a deck onto his duplex that was built in the 70s, totally to the city's ordinance that was then changed, and the city turned him down cold, not only on a regular permit, he even went to ZBA and got turned down. So when you take away property rights from a homeowner, that they can't put a deck on their property, I think you might have gone too far. So I'd really like to see you guys look seriously at restoring some rights to people that were taken away. You downzoned a lot of properties, you shrank building heights. So now when, instead of having a 3-story, you get to have a 2.5, and the half is truly for people 4 feet tall. So you've kind of wasted some ground space, to be honest with you. If you're looking for affordable housing, you need to go up because we don't have any extra land. So I just want to make sure you strongly consider that and encourage it. And when you're doing that, make sure it's done transparently. I didn't like the term, we're doing this in-house. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound like the public is going to have input. So I'd like to make sure you hold some hearings so that people can talk about the things and how they were negatively affected. Because I know a lot of properties that ordinance went backwards on. And it may have looked really pretty, the names might have looked really good, but the truth of the matter is, we had a pretty darn good ordinance before that. And I don't know who had the idea that, oh, we need this new ordinance. We've been tweaking that thing now ever since. And here we go again. So anyways, make sure it's transparent and make sure you involve the citizens. I don't want to hear this, we're going to do it in-house. I don't know what that means, but it means to me that you're not going to ask for citizen input. So make that a high priority.
Right. No, I appreciate your comments, and by in-house, I didn't mean in secret.
What did you mean?
I meant
Not
that
hiring a firm.
Right, we're not hiring a firm. We're gonna do it with the personnel that we have. It's not gonna be done just privately.
No, I understand. What about the citizens?
Right.
Where do they fit in?
Pat is putting the group of people together, so
Well,
it's.
No, the general
on the zoning
populace.
ordinance, it's being done at the planning commission. They kicked it off last Tuesday night and Lene Wells is a consultant that's guiding the process, but they're not totally redoing the ordinance. It is an amendment of the existing ordinance, as discussed at some length here and at the planning commission. I think there's been plenty of open discussion, and there will be in every step. The planning commission is, I don't want to say exhaustive to a fault, but they really spend a lot of time on it. They're late meetings, lots of public input. Everybody who attends the meetings is given an opportunity to comment. And I think they do a pretty good job. They already started getting into, the other night, they were getting into some of the weeds, talking about trailers and boats and things that can be parked in driveways, very public, opportunity for public comment. And then there will be public hearings along the way. There's required to be public hearings.
Sure.
So it's all very public, it's publicized. Then it comes to city council, public agendas, needs 2 readings here. So there's always lots of opportunity for feedback, and there's nothing being done behind closed doors at any point.
But by the time you get there, you're pretty much down the road. I guess I can't find a reason, I can't think of one, why you can't start holding some open meetings now, just some get-togethers. We have an expensive community center. Let's invite the public in and say, hey, how has this ordinance affected you and what would you like to see? I don't think a board that's, 8, 10 people, when you got 10,000, I think you better consider letting the people come in and let's fix this thing this time. Let's not let some little subset of a subset of a subset say, oh, I think this is a great idea. So anyways, that's my comment.
All right,
You can ignore it, or you can maybe consider letting the public in on it. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, we will adjourn our meeting. Thanks all for coming.